everyone, welcome to GameFace, episode 98 on Sifted Games at Sifted.net. Did you guys miss us last week? Did you miss being here, Matt?
No.
No?
I didn't even notice.
Want to apologize for not doing a show last week. Matt was out. He was up north taking care of some stuff. We had problems getting someone else to come in, and then Sam left for vacation. And in fact, even with this episode, this is going to be somewhat of a special episode because we do not have Sam here. There's an empty chair in front of the TriCaster, which
Missing
makes us,
man formation.
Yeah, which makes us a little sad. So the production values of the show today are not going to be quite what you're used to. There's going to be no camera cuts between Matt and I. We're going to stay locked on this two-shot, which honestly is what every other podcast does.
Yeah.
It's funny, I watched...
Lucky if you get B-roll.
Yeah, Kind of Funny started trying to do camera cuts on its stuff. And if you look in the comments, all the kids are like, just stay on the two-shot. Don't cut. And maybe their TriCaster operator isn't up to speed yet.
Well, some people like to watch the people who aren't talking.
Yeah, I guess so.
Because sometimes it's interesting to see what the other person is, what their face is doing.
Yeah. But if you have a good TD, and we do, Sam is great, they know how to read a conversation, and they know when to go to that one shot when one person's getting really passionate about something. So we're like everybody else this week. Hopefully you guys are cool with that. We will have tons of B-roll in the show, so don't sweat it. And also, it is going to go up a little later, so you're going to be watching this. It's going to be Saturday morning instead of late Friday night like it usually is. So welcome to the show. We have a great one today. Matt, we've been struggling along all summer trying to come up with topics for the show. I think we did a pretty good job. I think the shows were good, but today...
There just wasn't much in the way of releases.
No, but today...
The dam has broken.
It has, and we have a show completely full of games. We have one topic that's obviously still games related, but the rest of the time we're talking about actual games that came out over the last week and a half or 2 weeks. So really excited about it. We're going to start off with a game that has been doing really well with critics, and I know is near and dear to your heart, and that game is Sonic Mania.
Yeah, as a Sega fan, I was hoping this one would deliver, and I think it has. Frankly.
And you are a dyed-in-the-wool Sega fan.
Yeah, love Sega. I mean, Sonic isn't my bread and butter, really. Especially, I mean, look, to me, Sonic peaked at Sonic 1 or 2.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, yeah.
And my one complaint with Sonic Mania is that it uses a lot more Sonic 3 than I'm comfortable with.
Well, I think the most common complaint I've seen about it in general is that it just maybe reuses a little bit too much content.
It does reuse some stuff, but I don't really have a problem with much of that because I like the way they do it. They just use a lot of mechanics from Sonic 3 in places that I've always felt muddied things up. But the main thing I didn't like about Sonic 3 is and Sonic and Knuckles is I don't like that art style. And they went with more of a Sonic 2, Sonic CD style art style for Sonic Mania, and I like that. So that's a very minor complaint, just in the sense that like the theme song that plays when at the title screen is Sonic 3 and not real Sonic.
Not a big deal.
But it's just like little, because the whole game is so wrapped up in, remembering what made Sonic great in the 2D era and what we miss about it and why we liked it. And like I said, like they do go back to old zones, like the Chaos Emeralds or whatever that Robotnik's stealing, or Eggman, I guess now they're calling him. One way or the other.
What is the deal with that? What makes him Robotnik or Eggman? I know Eggman came along later.
He was called Eggman in Japan.
Okay.
And the Sega of America called him Robotnik. And eventually, in Sonic Adventure, they turned Eggman into like a derogatory name that Sonic called him to make fun of him. And over time, the English versions have just sort of adopted Eggman as part, because that's like why everything in like the old games was all egg themed, like the death egg and all that stuff. Yeah. And American audience were like, "What? Why is that? What's with all the egg stuff?" And so like Robotnik just is kind of, it's like a dual name. And then like there's like the comic had a different explanation where like I think there was another guy from another, like Robotnik got killed, and and Eggman was a version of him from another reality that showed up and became the new villain or something. I don't know. Don't go down the Sonic continuity rabbit hole. There's nothing there for you.
Even worse, the fanfic hole.
Yeah. Which this is kind of a fan fiction game in ways. Like it's
made by a fan.
Made by a fan that Sega brought in to basically, hey, can you please make a good Sonic game for us? Because we don't know how to do it anymore.
How crazy is that?
And he did it. I mean, it's one thing I like is that you're being zapped to these old, Green Hill Zone, what's the Oh, I can't remember the name of the one with the yellow ramps and everything. The second level, you'll recognize them. And the great thing is, like, on the Act 1, you start out and you're like, oh, this is the old level. And then, like, as you get maybe third or halfway through, it starts to, like, branch out and, like, there's more new stuff there. And by you get to Act 2, it's brand new, but it's just in the same, like, same assets, basically.
Right, yeah.
And I think that works really well. And there's a couple of things where there's some places that are really challenging. Even as a Sonic veteran, there's a couple of things where I'm like, oh, you're not toning this down. Like, you got to find your way through here. And because that's the thing people forget is, like, you kind of have this thing, and I've seen some people on Gaff and Twitter and some places kind of time was like, I don't know how to play a Sonic game. I realized playing Sonic Mania, and like, because people are like confused, like, oh, I thought you were supposed to go really fast. But a lot of Sonic levels are like real tricky platforming and timing.
I always feel weird doing that in Sonic games, though, because I do feel like, it was kind of, his brand was built on speed. And so you kind of always have in the back of your mind, I'm supposed to be going a lot faster than I am. But you're right, some of the level design in the series is very intricate. And there's parts, too, where you do something and you go deeper into the screen, and, running really fast through something like that, you're not going to get the ultimate payoff from the game, I think, that you could get.
And they get a good variety of different types of gameplay in every level. I think, like, there's areas where, like, okay, if you stay up top, you'll be doing crazy roller coaster stuff. If you go down low, you're going to be underwater doing platform and trying not to run out of air, which is a very different approach because he moves so slow underwater. And there's a lot. It keeps it interesting, and, like, even when you got to redo stuff, there's always, like, another way you can try going and to get around what you're stuck on. And, like, I really like that because to me, the old Sonic strengths of the old Sonic games, especially Sonic 2, was not necessarily got to go fast. It was figure out how you want to get through this. Yeah. And, whereas like a Mario, especially at the time, Mario was more about, you have to get through this challenge, like get past this part of the level. And Sonic was like, I don't like this part of the level, I'm going to go over it. Right. I'm going to go under it. And I always liked that. That was a it
certainly had a lot more flexibility. Yeah.
And the other thing about Sonic Mania that I really like is bosses pop up fast and furious, and they're real clever. Like you never really fight the same boss battle twice. Like, you're constantly doing different things. And even in context with all the bosses you've already fought in all the other Sonic games that have ever been made, like, there's a lot of stuff in this that are like, oh, like that's a new idea. Or like one of the ones, I think the second major boss is Robotnik's in a jet, and you're racing along like a highway, and his like buddy little egg robot things are flying with him, and he keeps firing missiles. You have to hit a particular missile that will fly back and hit him, and like it's all just going up and down and around. Like, it's constant motion, and it's just like this. Sonic Mania does a great job of delivering the Genesis or Mega Drive experience, but while doing things that the Genesis and Mega Drive could never have done. Yeah, and like this is the game, like, I think that a lot of Sega fans had in their head when the Saturn came out, and just never happened.
How do you feel about the visuals?
I like them.
I mean, it looks good.
Yeah.
But it doesn't look like it... I mean, maybe it's intentional. Maybe they kind of threw a filter over top of it to make it look a little more retro, but it doesn't look like it's really taking full advantage of
it is.
The hardware. It is.
If you watch the Digital Foundry breakdown, I don't think I see it as much on mine because it's being scaled down to 1080p. I'm playing on PS4 Pro. But PS4 Pro can actually output that at 4K.
Wow!
And it scales the things up properly. Like, you can see if they in that video, the Digital Foundry video, where they show like, yeah, it's clean, it's there, it's a 4K 2D image, and it looks amazing.
Wow!
It looks about as good as as a pixel thing is gonna look at.
Do you see what I'm saying though? When you look at it though, it looks like it has like really rough edges, and maybe it's a little blurry.
I think you need to turn off the clean filter.
Oh, really?
There's filter. If you go to the options, there's 4 filters. There's clean, which is on by default. Mm-hmm. There's 2 different CRT scanline filters, and there's clear, which is nothing. And if you change, when I change it to clear, there's more like pixel edges on things, but the sharpness of it is there.
Gotcha.
So I would recommend changing it to clear.
What do you think about the length of the game? That seems to be... If there is really a common criticism of the game, that seems to be it, that it's a little short.
It is a little short, but it's
replayable, though.
It's very replayable. There's tons of different ways to go through it. You can play as Knuckles as well. Like, I've been playing as Sonic and Tails. You can play either as Sonic alone, Sonic with Tails, or Knuckles, I believe. and I've only played as Sonic with Tails.
Well, how does the game change when you play with two at once?
Well, it's like Sonic 2, so like the main difference is that Tails gets killed a lot when he's not able to keep up with you, and every once in a while there's the enemies that will grab you and hold you, and Tails will jump up and kill him, and he'll take a couple shots at things now and then. But I always like him tagging along just because that's Sonic 2. You know, I always thought it was cool that they had another. That had never really been done before. You can't like really team up with it. It's not like at least I don't think you can like, because some games like he can fly around and carry Sonic and stuff. That doesn't really seem to happen here, as far as I know. But I just like having him along. Yeah. You know, whereas Knuckles, I haven't played as Knuckles, but I assume he can climb, because that's usually been his thing, climb and glide.
Right.
And Tails presumably can fly short distances. So there's different ways to see. There's probably some places only they can get to.
Yeah.
Again,
which ties into replay.
And there's of course all the bonus stages. There's like, you know, every time you hit a checkpoint, I think if you have a certain number of rings, you can jump in and play that one of those, like it's the Sonic 2 style, running across the globe, the sphere. You have to pick up all the blue spheres and not touch the red spheres. And that stuff is hard. Like I think I've only actually 100%ed like 2 of them.
Wow.
And I've been doing it. And just they're tough and they run real smooth unless you're on the Switch.
Well, the Switch has problems with like the home screen.
Yeah, that's a different. I don't know what that is about. I know, but it runs the bonus stages and the special stages with there's some frame rate drops. Not terrible, but it's an interesting indication of like you can't even do that, huh?
Yeah, that is pretty sad.
It's I don't know like where the fault lies on that. But then the special stages, which is where you get the Chaos Emeralds, are based on Sonic CD.
Right.
Because the fan,
which is probably up until this point in my top 2 Sonic games.
Yeah, Sonic CD is great, and I can't remember the guy who made this. His name, I think, is Christopher.
Well, I don't remember his name either. But they splash his. His
name
is like a part of the title screen.
And but he is a big Sonic CD fan. Like that's where they found him was. He was basically doing a version of Sonic CD and like trying to make it playable on modern PCs or something like that. So there's a lot of Sonic CD references in there, and in fact, the opening the opening animation that plays after the title screen. While I think the music is not very good, it doesn't match very well. Like the art style and the animation style is absolutely the Sonic CD.
You're talking about the cartoon?
Little cartoon thing where like they're running around.
It's great.
And but so there's a lot of Sonic CD in there, but like, what was I talking about?
Well, here I'll lead you to the next question that I have. Not everyone, but a lot of people have been saying best Sonic ever. Would you agree with that?
Case could be made.
Yeah?
Like, if you were to play all of them now and not have, like, that nostalgia for 1 and 2, like, this is a real good iteration on that idea. Like, it's certainly the most complex 2D Sonic ever made. The levels are even the levels where I'm like, I love Green Hill Zone, the classic Green Hill Zone. But
how can you not?
But, like... like honestly, especially Act 2 in Sonic Mania's Act 2 of Green Hill Zone, it's better than anything in the first one.
Wow.
It's if you really want to be honest about it, like there's more impressive stuff in here. And yes, it's building on what came before.
Right.
But nobody's done that since 1996.
No, you're right.
It's
you're absolutely
like
right.
it's really cool to see, and it's cool to see in the sense that like we thought we'd see it in Sonic 4 and it wasn't there.
Yeah.
And this is delivering on it almost feels like Sonic 4 was like the failed dry run, and they brought this guy in and be like, can you just do that correctly, please? And he did it. I mean, I understand why
really crazy.
It's a fairly short game in the sense that like, you can't take a huge financial risk on making this huge game that no one buys.
Made by a fan.
Made by a fan, but it's like, here's the thing, like, Sonic Mania 2 is going to be probably twice as long.
Right.
I mean, I feel like
the proof of concept's there.
It's all there. The reviews are there.
Sell really well.
I think the Sonic fans are going to embrace this because it's one of their own, and B, it's exactly what people have been asking for 20-some years. Like, it's great.
How long did it take you to finish it?
I haven't finished it yet.
Oh, you haven't? You're one of those completists, though. You'll go and play the same stage.
Yeah, also I had a lot of stuff to play this week.
Right.
So,
I
went through the first 3 levels, the first 3 so the end of Sonicopolis, the movie themed one.
Yeah.
Complete with Eggman director's chairs.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've seen like the number of stages and like you're gonna burn through that pretty fast. But there's a lot of stuff to look for, and certainly it's gonna take you a long time, I think, to get all the Chaos Emeralds and get the true ending.
If you're into that stuff.
Also, so what is it? $19, $20?
Is it only $20?
I thought so.
I thought it was more than that.
I don't think so.
Did you not buy it?
I did, but
You
I bought it.
just didn't
I bought a bunch of stuff at once.
Oh, got you.
So I think I bought that and like the next game and one other like all together. So I don't remember. I just remember.
I know it's
the full
discounted,
total.
but I didn't know it was that discounted.
I want to say
That seems crazy, $20.
I want to say it was $20. I can look that up.
I mean, they could have definitely milked Sonic fans for more than that.
I feel
so
like
if it is indeed $20, kudos
remember.
to
I
Sega.
feel like I would have looked twice if it was about paying more than $20 for a Sonic game. If I'm super honest.
Well, you can buy a packaged version of it, right?
Yeah, I think so, but I didn't.
Yeah, you just got the digital version.
Mm-hmm. I would have bought it for. I would have bought it for PC, but that's not out until the 29th for some reason.
Odd that you would buy that game for PC. That's crazy to hear. That a Sonic fan would prefer to buy a PC version of Sonic.
Yeah, $19.99.
Wow, that's a good deal.
Just because I prefer to have everything on PC if you're talking about running smoothly or whatever.
Sure.
And also I kind of figure out because it's a fan game, maybe if people start modding it or adding their own stuff, it's going to be on PC.
So this is pretty much a no.
I'm not waiting 2 weeks.
So this is pretty much a no-brainer purchase.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say even if you haven't enjoyed Sonic for a long time or maybe never liked Sonic, should someone like that pick it up?
If you like the 2D, if you like the old Genesis games, especially 1, 2, and 3, you will like this.
Okay.
It's
not going to change anyone's mind.
If the 2D Sonic games never did it for you, this is not going to change your mind. I mean, it might just in the sense of the scale of the levels and the variety at stake or at on display. But I don't mean it's a not a nostalgia trip, but it's a game for people who've wanted that to come back for a long time. And it doesn't. And the strength of it is it doesn't lean on it. I think it's legitimately good game design from the confines of the Sonic the Hedgehog formalist structure.
Right.
But like I don't think this is going to make you a whole lot of converts unless because it's just Sonic 1 and 2, but bigger and better. I would say
that's good enough for fans. Without a doubt.
Fans,
no brainer. Go
considering what we've gone through with this series, it's amazing.
The last 2D Sonic game I really enjoyed was Sonic Advance.
Yeah, I mean the advanced games were pretty good.
Yeah.
Like one of the you had those little bright spots in the Sonic catalog going through, and I think Sonic Advance was probably the best it got.
Yeah, I actually bought Sonic Advance when I was in Japan. It had come out earlier there, and I bought it and played it the whole way on the way back, the 11, 12-hour flight on the way back. And I think I finished it, but I really enjoyed that one. But Sonic CD, Sonic 1 and 2, Sonic Advance in there. I have not got to play this yet, so
it's really. Sonic 1 is probably my favorite in terms of just being the first, and it's also one of the few games where I played it. I played it at my friend's house because he got it first. And I played it late night because I was sleeping over, and I played it late night, and he went to bed, and I kept playing, and I finished it, and it went back to the title screen, and I started again.
Nice.
At like 3 a.m. I just kept going. I've only done that probably 3 times in my life. Finished the game and instantly started the next game, the new game of it. But Sonic 2 is probably an objectively better game in design. But like whether one or the other, like this is a very natural continuation with some of the lessons of Sonic 3 kind of incorporated, but not overwhelming the classic Sonic, because I don't consider 3 and Knuckles to be classic Sonic, really, because they changed too much of how it functioned and they changed the art style too much. But they don't do that on this. It's like Sonic 2. Honestly, it's like what Sonic 3 should have been.
Right.
In a way. It doesn't introduce Knuckles the way Sonic 3 does, where it's like, oh, who's this guy? He's just there. He's not actually part of the story so far. Actually, you can just play as him.
He's just there.
But yeah, I give it the highest imaginable recommendation if you're a Sonic fan who thinks that it's just lost its way.
And for $20, it's pretty much a no-brainer.
Yeah, $20 is great.
Yep. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about probably at this point one of my top 5 indie studios in existence, Housemarque. Housemarque's been on a run. Resogun, obviously, is. I think for a lot of people, Resogun kind of put Housemarque on the map.
Oh yeah, because you got it free with your PS4.
Right, and I think people didn't realize who they were, but then so many people got exposed to Resogun that now it's kind of one of those names that pops up that actually people pay attention to.
I think I didn't start really paying attention to him until it was kind of the 1-2 punch of Nex Machina coming out right on the heels of this game, Matterfall, being announced and shown at E3. And I was like, oh, these guys got something going on.
Well, they have a thing.
They love the voxels, and they love twin stick shooting.
Yeah.
And they seem, judging by this game, they are on a mission to apply twin stick shooting to every imaginable genre. And I wish them luck because so far they're doing pretty good.
Because this is a side-scrolling.
This is Metroid.
Yeah, it's Metroid, but it still has twin stick controls.
It's Metroid, but you're aiming with the twin stick, so it's similar to Shadow Complex.
Yeah.
But it's much faster and more furious action than Shadow Complex.
And much more challenging.
Yes, it's very very challenging. I mean, I haven't died yet, but and I'm through 2 of the three worlds.
That's pretty impressive.
But the multiplier game is not working too well. I am, and you've got some woman's voice announces multiplier up and multiplier down, and she sounds so disappointed when the multiplier goes down. And every time you get hit, the multiplier goes down by 1.
Right.
And it's just multiplier down, multiplier down, multiplier lost. It's just okay, you're done. The boss battles are very discouraging in that regard.
Yeah.
But it's really, it is Metroid. It is a woman in a battle armor suit, with an arm cannon, running around as basically rescuing people and being the only one who can go in and solve this this crisis where these robots are being going rampant because of some new form of matter that's taking over this experimental city.
Now, is there any sort of narrative in the game? Because typically their games, it's very light.
At the very beginning, you get it's narrated by the whose name I can't even remember, the not Samus character, who's basically he's that's me. I got to go in and deal with these people. Here we go. Let's kill some robots. And it's okay. And then I don't think she speaks again at least for the rest of the game.
Oh, really?
There's been no story things beyond you got to rescue civilians and something. Civilians will either thank you or say what took you so long.
That's another hallmark of Housemarque games. Mm-hmm. Rescuing the humans.
Yeah,
it's in every game.
You always got to pick the humans up.
Yeah,
it's a classic thing. It's Defender did it and Robotron did it. And as long as you're adapting your twin stick ideas, you might as well.
Yeah. It's not been getting great reviews.
No, I don't think it's as good as Nex Machina. Nex Machina has a simplicity that just makes it beautiful. Matterfall, I think, while it's interesting and there's a lot of stuff that's happening, the controls are really difficult to get used to because they're breaking the mold a little bit more here.
Well, yeah, you don't really play games that play like that.
Right, and because so you've got shooting on the stick and jump on R1. And you've got a burst move, which is basically it think of it sort of because it's been compared to Ikaruga, where you can you flip the ship back and forth and it absorbs different colors of bullets or whatever. So your burst move can negate bullets and stun enemies. So good stuff is blue and bad stuff is red in this essentially. So if you burst, bullets are red orange and you'll burst and you'll erase all those bullets near you. And then
how often can you do that? That's on a cooldown?
Every second or so. There's a short cooldown. You can't just spam it.
Right.
And then if you move a direction with that, you'll burst. Dash burst. So you can smash through the ground. You can dash and slide this way, left or right. You can jump up. That's how you get through matter platforms as you kind of burst through them.
Right.
And then L2 is your good matter beam. So you use that to fill in blank platforms and rescue civilians with the R stick. So basically you're shooting with the R stick, but you're holding L2 to make it the beam.
It's like a modifier.
Yeah. So you've got all that happening. And you're trying to move and aim and shoot with the stick and jump with this, and then in the middle of that burst and move with the stick to figure out which way you're going to move. And then sometimes you're in midair and you got to fill in that platform and dash down through it and up through it. And it's basically it's learning how to type a little bit, and it's not as simple and pick up and go as Nex Machina or Resogun are.
And that's another Mark.
Yeah, which is new for them. It's it feels a little bit like they were struggling to get all the things they wanted to be able to do onto the controller in a way in a mapped fashion that made everything work properly.
Yeah,
that gave you access to everything because you can't really take your thumb off the right stick. The face buttons are sort of out of the game for the most part. And then I think if you hold R2, you have a secondary weapon. You can shoot grenades instead or something, depending on what you have equipped.
Would you have like a super weapon as well?
Yes. There's like a square, I think, is overcharge or something like that.
That's always awkward with a twin stick. You take your thumb off that right stick to use the button.
I mean, luckily, it basically you're invincible when that happens, so you're not going to have to worry about getting hit when you.
Well, what about aiming it though?
Then you don't have to hold it. It's like you hit it and she does like that, and then you're by that point you're.
So
back
it's like
on
an
the
area
stick.
attack.
No, it's like a timed super mode.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So it's like you're charged up, your bullets do more damage. You get like a spread gun kind of. Basically, it's like you get like, and depending on. You collect the super mode, super bar stuff from defeated enemies. So if you're killing enough enemies, you can keep it going. Yeah. There's like an achievement for keeping it going for like 30 seconds or something like that. Yeah. And I think if you don't do anything, it runs out in like 6. It's very fast. But so you've got that in your back pocket if you need it. Basically, I would just say like the learning curve on the controls is much higher than anything they've ever made, and I think that's turning people off a little bit because people have really loved the pick up and play, easy to understand but very hard to kind of master the in-game mechanics. Whereas like in Nex Machina, when I'm dying, I felt like, oh, I fucked up.
Yeah, my fault.
Whereas in Matterfall, a lot of it's like, oh, I didn't mean to do that.
Right.
And that's a new thing for
for
Housemarque games, and I think that's where some of the lower reviews are coming from, where the challenge isn't necessarily coming in a lot of places from the game throwing crazy stuff at you. It's coming from your fingers getting twisted up trying to make sense of all the controls you have to handle.
But you felt like eventually you got the hang of it.
More or less, but I don't. But I don't feel like a master of it. I don't feel like I'm always reliably able to do exactly what I want to do in a tense situation.
Yeah.
And I also don't feel like the game is long enough or...
that was going to be my point.
It's not long enough or like replayable enough for me to really want to play it long enough to get that good at it.
Yeah.
So it feels...
Because that's the thing about Housemarque's games is the mechanics never get that intense, but it's so short they can't. Mm-hmm. Because you can't pile on options and make something really difficult if you don't give people enough field to master the mechanics. And this game is about the same length as its other games.
Yeah. It's 3, unless something else unlocks, it's 3 worlds. And I believe it's 3 stages per world and a boss.
Okay.
Wow,
that's not much.
It's not. So I got through the first 2. I think took me like an hour and 15.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like it's an.
So it's like a 2-hour game, but
it's probably 2.5 hours for most people. I mean, although I don't know, maybe it's harder for some people. It's like it's a fast run and gun thing. I mean, people compare it to Metroid and I compare it to Metroid because it's reminiscent. As a matter of fact, when my girlfriend came in, she saw it and she was like, "Are you playing Metroid?" I'm like, "No, it's this thing." She's like, "Wow." She didn't think it was Metroid, because it didn't look like a Switch game,
right?
But like, she didn't know what it was. She was like, "Is that what?" And so, but the main thing is like there's no explanation, not a lot of exploration. It's not it's not Metroid in the sense it's a big map. You're basically running.
It's linear.
You're running gunning through like a fairly linear map with an occasional little detour to get a little bonus thing. Like
the most common criticism I've seen of it is it's short and there's no replay value.
Yeah, I mean I would agree with that for the most part, unless you're a real completist. And there's a lot of like leaderboard stuff where it's like you put your score up against everybody. I mean, look, my first time through the first world, all my scores were in the 400 range worldwide. So either not a lot of people are playing this, or not a lot of people are trying to master it.
Or it could be a combo of both.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, like my scores were in like around like 1 million in these things, and like the top scores were like 3 million, 4 million. So clearly there's room to improve.
Yeah.
But I don't care. Like it's just not a thing I'm interested in. So I went through it and it was fun. It was fine.
How much was it?
I think it was 15.
That's a little steep.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're juggling Housemarque choices, I would definitely get Nex Machina over this.
Yeah.
Nex Machina is like probably on my short list for indie game of the year.
Me too. Yeah.
Whereas
we gloated over it already in the show, but yeah.
But this is cool, but it's like it's not on the level. It's
not up to the.
It's not the Housemarque standards.
Yeah.
It doesn't deserve the Housemarque.
There you go.
It does. I mean, it's fine. It's a cool take on a different genre they haven't attempted before, and I like it. but I don't love it the way I loved Resogun and Nex Machina.
Was this your pick for best indie game of E3?
It was.
You recognize it in some way,
Yeah,
I remember.
I picked it as the indie, at least the one I was most interested in, because after coming off Nex Machina, I was excited about their next thing.
Yeah.
So I would say this was a little disappointing, just in the sense that it's not on par with their other stuff, but at the same time, if almost any other studio made this, it'd be their best game ever.
Right.
You know? So it's like...
It also illustrates the perils of E3.
Yeah.
Where you get in there, you have a lot of outside noise, and sometimes like really simple concepts come through a lot stronger than maybe they will on down the road. You only get that very quick demo, so sometimes it's like, wow, that was amazing. Then you actually sit down and spend more than like 15 minutes with it, and you start to sort of uncover some of the cracks. So,
and it's it definitely is a good demo of a game, and you look at it and you see the possibilities. And I think my main thing is like, they gave you all these different controls, and they never quite. I think they were looking too hard at all what they could let the player character do, and not enough at what they could throw at the player character with what you could already do on a basic level that you could play with more.
Yeah.
Like I would have liked to have seen a lot more of the challenge come from navigating the levels as presented in the game, as opposed to navigating levels as like, can I remember which button does what?
Right.
And eventually you get it, but it's also like...
Well, when it's only 2 hours long, how much time do you really have to get
because
it?
also like think about that L1 button, the burst button. It's standstill burst, slam burst, dash up burst, slide burst, and then different in midair there are also different things there. So that one button combined with that stick does 4 or 5 different things.
Right.
And if you're not exactly on the ball, exactly what you want to do, you're going to do the wrong thing, and sometimes that can be disastrous. And it's a learning curve. I'm used to that with like fighting games and stuff.
Yeah.
You got to learn your inputs. But it's one of those things where it's like, I will learn those inputs in Street Fighter because I'm playing people over and over and over again in a competitive mode. And in this, it's like, well, this is done in 2-3 hours. Why would I go back to get better at that unless I really care about where my name is on the leaderboard? And I don't.
Yeah.
So I think it's good. I think it's worth playing, but I would wait for
the discount.
Wait for the discount. Wait for the PS Plus giveaway month thing.
That's probably what's going to happen. 3 months from now, it'll be a free game for PlayStation Plus subscribers or whatever. So
and I certainly not to slam it really, but it's like just go get Nex Machina instead.
Yeah.
If you want to.
I have a feeling a lot of people probably pass on Nex Machina, despite us imploring them to get it.
But Nex Machina,
and again, you should get it.
Yeah, if you like this twin stick Robotron thing, I think that's the best take on it possibly ever.
And I think the difference too is Nex Machina isn't much longer than that. I mean, it's a pretty short game too, but there is like extensive replay value.
Right, the moment-to-moment
chaos
chaos
so fun
of
to
Nex
play
Machina.
that it's okay if you just play a stage again. Like,
the moment-to-moment chaos of Nex Machina keeps it interesting on a very short-term scale, whereas there is some really cool like big set piece sort of everything and its brother attacks you at once thing in Matterfall.
Yeah.
But I feel like it never quite hits the hectic heights of Nex Machina, and one of the reasons it doesn't...
Or Resogun, I mean, for that matter.
Right, and one of the reasons it doesn't is because its control scheme, I don't think, can support that and keep it fair to the player.
All right.
And that's a shortcoming.
All right, so let's move on. We're going to talk next about what, in my estimation, is the best walking simulator ever made, and that game is Hellblade.
Because you can kill stuff.
You can. It's not a pure walk. And in fact, trying to shove this game into some kind of a genre is really difficult.
It's hard, yeah.
It really...
it's a walking simulator melee combat puzzle solver.
Yeah.
Which is like,
Yeah, I was on DLC a couple weeks ago with Christian Spicer and Jeff Kanata, and one of their viewers or listeners asked a question of what game do we wish there was a sequel to? And my answer to that was Eternal Darkness. And I was talking about how the insanity effects from Eternal Darkness is something that was really cool and something we really hadn't seen since. This game gives me kind of that same vibe, where you're questioning what is real and what is not real. And I love that about this game. I mean, and the other thing, too, is that the sound design really freaking sells it.
Sound design on this is, I mean...
Like the best of 2017.
Yeah, I think this you'll see this game mentioned in Game of the Year lists in the technical sections.
For sure.
I mean, sound
not
design,
just audio either.
Sound mixing, visuals are amazing. I can't remember her damn name. The woman who does the narrator in this game is my front runner for best voice performance of the year. She is amazing. And a lot of that also does come down to the sound mixing because she's so many different, like, she's the narrator, but she's also implied to be kind of the lead voice in Senua's head.
Right.
Because the main character, there was a lot of like research and psychology consulting done on this to kind of try to make the voices in the head something like, I guess, some kind of somewhat authentic depiction of psychosis.
Oh, they were serious about it. I mean, they put out so many developer diaries for this game. I mean, literally like 20 or 30. And I bet probably a third of them was just talking about the psychological angle and the research that they had done and the experts that they brought in to consult on the game. Look, I've never dealt with mental illness, but I am guessing that for people who do suffer from mental illness, this embodiment of it is pretty darn accurate. That would be my guess. Yeah, and it's terrifying. I feel terrible.
If you play this game, I highly you either should have a really good surround sound system or headphones.
Yeah.
Because the sound mix is really designed to come at you from all these different sides.
Yeah.
And it really.
And I started playing it with headphones on because it was late at night. My wife was asleep. And while I'm playing it, I'm like, oh my God, like I cannot wait till tomorrow to take these off. And because you could tell, like, you know how they always say headphones are like 7.1 or 5.1? Like, it's like a rough approximation. Like, I still have never heard a set of cans that actually really replicated, like, a sound directly behind me. It's like, kind of, but not really. And so I was getting kind of those kind of vibes using the headphones, and I was like, oh, man, like, this is going to be awesome. And once I turned on, like, my 5.1 and played it cranked, wow. Like, yeah, the sound in this game is amazing. So are the visuals, though. Like, I cannot believe that this game was made on the budget it was made on.
Yeah, they did a really impressive thing here.
Yeah.
There's about every level. And Cheapo Chung, that's her name.
Oh, okay, great. How'd you forget that name?
Because yeah.
That's a memorable one.
I keep forgetting Cheapo because I think it's like I'm making that up because it's another word, you know. Cheapo.
Oh, right.
It's like
her name really can't be.
No, her name is Chipo is her name.
Wow.
So Cheapo Chung. And she's been in a few things.
Soon to be on the Game Awards with Jeff Keighley.
I would,
because that's really the only video
if there's
game
any damn justice. Yes.
Yeah. But it's also the only gaming-related award show that actually has categories like that. Because they do that to get celebrities on the show.
Right. I mean, I don't know if she qualifies as a celebrity, but she's been in some stuff. She was in Sunshine. And she was in an episode of Sherlock. She's been around. She was an alien in Doctor Who at one point. I mean, she's done some stuff.
Yeah.
But she's really, really good in this. And I mean, all the voice performances are very good, but she stands out as like kind of the first voice you hear and the person that kind of brings you into the world at the beginning when Senna was paddling her way to hell, basically.
Yeah.
And she just does a phenomenal job. Again, it actually reminds me a little bit of Cate Blanchett in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
where she narrates the kind of the intro part of Fellowship of the Ring with the...
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And it's like, it reminded me a little about that, but it turns real sinister real fast.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's all these different voices that fly around you that are and the thing is, like, they don't stop, because like in stressful situations that becomes a big deal, and like they're yelling at you like during combat about like behind you, what are you doing? Why'd you do that? Don't you know? Because like part of it is the self-doubt and the constant questioning voices that mentally ill like patients describe, and like there's stuff like during like puzzles and stuff. It's like she'll never figure it out.
No, I know.
What are you doing? Why are you even doing it? Like it's like they're trying to undermine your confidence in your ability to do anything, and because of the great
Imagine
sound
if you
design,
really heard that in your head all the time.
Oh yeah, it's terrifying. It's like
it really is.
And the way the sound mixing works, like in a good surround or in a good surround headphones, like it's oppressive. It's an oppressive sound mix that gets into you, and you're like, I'm just trying to find the rune. Just leave me alone. And it's like I think it gets done what they want to get done in that regard, and I'm very impressed by it.
How do you feel about? Maybe the better way to ask it is, were you surprised at the dearth of action?
Not really, because I'd read the previews.
Oh, I hadn't. But I think I kind of had a hint because they didn't really show combat until like really late in the cycle. And generally, if that's a big focus, that's something you're going to show earlier and you're going to focus on a lot.
I do think the combat in the final version feels better than what they showed earlier.
Yeah.
Like it feels a little more...
It looked janky.
It looked janky, and it also had this kind of, you know how like sometimes you see combat where like you pass a sword through something and it feels like you didn't hit anything.
Right. Yeah.
Like you're just sort of whacking a model and it doesn't do anything. Like that was definitely there in the previews of the combat, and that doesn't feel as prevalent now. It feels like they've done something to kind of make it feel more like you're cutting through some flesh. You leave cut marks on the enemies now. And there's a certain combo you can do that sticks the blade into the guy, and then you can follow up off that, and that feels really good. So it's a rudimentary combat system in a lot of ways, and if anybody gets behind you, it gets really annoying because you can't. Like, she's not agile enough to really get away from it. But the other thing, of course, is that the game has almost no on-screen tutorial.
Right.
At all. Like, they make very clear...
Which I think in general was the right choice.
I think it's the right idea, yeah.
Yeah.
But, like, if you're not used to having to figure games out for yourself, this might be a shock. And, you know, there's moments... And a lot of the hints of what you can do come from the voices yelling at you.
Yeah.
And so it's
well, then you don't know whether to trust them.
Well, then, like, you have to kind of pick... First, you have to pick up, like when you first walk up to the first thing you can interact with, the way you interact with them is you hold the right trigger and you focus on it. You know, it's like Witcher 3 or whatever. And if you walk up to it and you don't do anything, the voice is like, "Why isn't she focusing? What is she doing? Doesn't she know what she?" You know, it's like, and you're like, "What? What do you want me to do?" And so then you figure out, okay, the way you kind of put it all together is really cool. And eventually you learn through being yelled at that, and through some visual cues you start to pick up on that you can focus during combat.
Yeah.
And freeze everything, and that gives you an out. And kind of the slow putting, and there's a tension to that because the one thing it does make clear in text, like very obvious, is, you know, she's got this like kind of black slime Princess Mononoke style thing on her arm, and every time you die, it crawls up her arm more,
farther,
and it gets to her brain, it erases your save.
Yeah.
Now that is very hard to. There was some controversy about that. It's very hard to die that often to make that happen.
The game's not that difficult.
No, but in the first the first big fight I got into. Yeah, the first thing where you fight like a bunch of guys, I died I think 2 or 3 times, just because she can only take like 3 or 4 hits.
Yeah.
And like that thing was up to here. I mean, it was almost to the but it seems to reset if you go through. More
I don't know that
sections.
it resets. I think what happens is the farther up the arm it goes, the less it goes up per
but
depth.
it's definitely low because it was over her elbow. At one point, and now it's below her elbow.
Oh,
so it's definitely going backward.
Yeah, I never noticed that at all.
I'm paying real close attention to where that thing is. It's like, you erase my save, we're going to have words.
I think you might be the first person in the world, though, to actually have their save erased. It didn't try to do it on purpose.
Yeah, I mean, well, what was it?
Because it's really hard.
Well,
to do.
Basically, you have to die in the same place over and over and over and over. I mean, it sounds like it's like 20, 30
It's more
deaths.
of a threat than anything, but this is what I love about this game more than anything, is that it makes you, when you play it, it makes you feel like you have a mental disorder. You're talking earlier about how like you second guess yourself a lot of times. You're hearing voices. You were talking about how it started to agitate you. Like, if their goal was to make the player feel what it feels like to have a mental disorder, hey, shots at the heart. I mean, they nail it. I've never played a game like this that went for a psychological angle like that and actually succeeded in doing it. Other teams have said that this is what they were trying, even with Eternal Darkness. It was like the insanity effects in that, it never made you feel like you were going insane.
No.
It was more of like a...
It was a gag.
It was a gag, yeah.
I mean, look, Eternal Darkness got me with the "we're erasing your save" card. I mean, and even though at that point I knew, but like when you see that pop up, it's like your gamer instinct pops up, and you're just like, no.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But this is like...
But this is a totally different beast.
Yeah,
I mean, it's of the same family,
vibe.
but like they're taking it a totally different direction, and it's amazing.
Yeah,
really.
it really is.
I mean, I also have I'm at least not diagnosed with a mental illness.
Yeah.
So I don't know like if people that do have that kind of thing like will stand up and say, no, this is not at all what it's like. This is all bullshit.
Yeah.
Like I'll accept that. But like But in terms of my inexperienced like perception of what that would feel like, this sure seems authentic to me.
And I'll tell you one thing, if they do feel this way, I feel really bad for them. Because holy cow, how can you go day after day surviving like that?
A lot of people don't.
Oh man. Yeah, I guess you're right. Good point.
And I also like that she's after to save basically her lover, her boyfriend from hell and the Norse afterworld or whatever. And but she's got like this kind of grizzled old Scottish dude, Celtic dude who's helping her out because he's dead too. But you piece together that basically like she found him like injured after being a slave to the Norsemen and helped him, and he has the same mental disorder she did, and she'd never met anyone like that before. So he kind of, to put it in Lost fan terms, he was her constant a little bit. Like he helped her contextualize what was happening to her, and so he's sort of there as like both helper and antagonizer through this, and like that's a really interesting relationship, and like it's kind of, you know, like that like relationship for whatever reason like rings true to me so far in the game. Like the idea that it's not her boyfriend, it's not someone she felt that way about, but it's someone she depended on and someone that like was very, very important to her and that she horribly misses, and that all comes through, and that's real hard to communicate in a video game.
But I feel like this game does that over and over and over again. Like it's kind of broken through this barrier of narrative. A narrator. It broke through the narrative barrier. I just feel like it's just something completely unique. And again, as someone who's played games for a long time, just like you, it's really hard to come across stuff like this in 2017. I don't know how the studio did this with the budget that it had. I know it developed proprietary like motion capture stuff for the facial. The facial animation is incredible. The budget that was spent on this, I mean, it makes you wonder if it changes the perspective of a lot of these bigger studios. And they're like, wait a minute, how did they do this?
And this is what the team was like 12 people?
I think it was a little bigger than that. I think eventually.
I think the graphic I saw from their thing was it was 12. The team was 12 people, and the maximum was 15. Like they hired three people to for like crunch time or whatever.
It's crazy. Like,
and their budget was, I mean, basically they have to sell 300,000 copies across all platforms to break even.
Which they already have,
nothing.
Right?
Well, 300,000 for something promoted on this level is pretty much nothing. I mean,
but it wasn't. But if you think about it, though, it wasn't really promoted on.
Wasn't promoted on mainstream.
They never spent money promoting it.
But
it kind of sold
they
itself.
put out a lot of stuff, and people knew. I mean, it's Ninja Theory. People know their stuff, and like I think even if you didn't like Devil May Cry, their Devil May Cry reboot, which I did.
I liked it too.
I thought it was fine.
Yeah.
But I don't have really much attachment to Dante as a character.
Some do, yeah.
Some do, but it's like I always found it funny. It's like, yeah, he kind of looks like a tool, but I think he's supposed to. Also, Dante has always been a tool.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know why people resonate with that guy so much.
Even pre-DMC, he's a dude who walks around with no shirt and a red trench coat.
Yeah.
Like, that's a tool.
No, you're right.
There's not. If you saw that guy in person, you would not think he was cool.
No, you would not.
Like, trust me.
Maybe back in like 1985 or something.
Yeah, I don't.
Not now, that's for sure.
Like, I'm sorry that Ninja Theory, trod on the sanctity of the character that gave us the line, "Whoa, slow down, babe." But like, I thought what they did there was fine and a little nightmarish in the same way this is. I feel like there's some. There's some, at least visual effects wise, there's some continuity between Hellblade and Devil May Cry. And Enslaved, while I didn't think that really got where it was going narratively, it was sort of that and Heaven, was it Heavenly Sword?
Yeah.
Like you can see, these people have been begging to make a narratively strong game that didn't force them to make a very complex combat system for many, many years. And in fact, there's elements of... what's her name? The younger kind of sister figure from Heavenly Sword. Is it Kit Kat? Twing Twang? The girl with the bow?
Yeah, I remember. I don't remember her name.
I think her name was Kat. I don't remember. I don't remember for sure. But like, she was also depicted as being a little off.
Yeah.
And like, I'm reminded of her a little bit in Hellblade. Like, there's clearly this is a subject and this is an idea that has been percolating in Ninja Theory as a company for a long time.
I wonder if Ninja Theory has screwed itself a little bit here. Because, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it will continue to do stuff like this. Because it looks like this game is going to be a smashing success. And it should. You guys should buy it. $30. No brainer. But I wonder
if a $30 game looks like this.
It's incredible.
I would say this is one of the top 5 best-looking games I've played in this generation.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Period.
I'd agree. And
it has a photo mode for a very good reason.
Yeah, so you wonder now if Capcom comes to Ninja Theory and says, hey, let's do another Devil May Cry. And they're like, and you're going to do it for a third of the budget you did last time.
Yeah.
How does Ninja Theory now say, oh, we can't do that?
Well, they just say, go away, we're going to make Hellblade 2.
Yeah.
I hope.
Which I would probably be all behind.
Or it becomes a Dante walking simulator. Let's really get into the head of Dante. Let's really explore that character.
That would be a huge mistake. A huge freaking mistake. But
it'd be a huge game, though. Huge open spaces.
Yeah.
Just empty.
But I think we're both unanimous here. Highly recommend buying this game. I think even if you haven't been into walking simulators in the past, I would say
I think it's got enough action to. I mean, it's not like phenomenal combat, but there's enough there, like, and it's tense enough to keep your interest.
And keeping in mind, like, I'm a gameplay first guy, and I am loving this game.
And wandering around trying, a lot of the puzzle solving is like you get these runes, you see what runes need to open the gate, and then you have to wander around the area and find those runes and match them up to the area. But some of the ways they make those runes appear in the environment are really
creative,
clever.
yeah.
And I like that a lot. And there's just enough like nudging to let you know where you should be, but like not enough that it solves it for you.
Yeah.
I'm real pleased with it so far. Like I'm
$30, PS4 and PC only for now. I would not be surprised if an Xbox One version comes.
Yeah, I would.
Switch version's definitely off the table.
Yeah, I don't think
not
there's a
happening.
Switch version of this.
Just doesn't have the power to push those visuals unless it would go through a crazy downscaling of some kind. But I highly recommend this game. I would say the only person I would not recommend this to is like someone who's really into combat.
Yeah, if you have zero interest in narrative and presentation, this game's not going to do it for you.
Like if you're unsifted and you have like for your eval rating story turned all the way down, you should probably stay away.
You'd probably pass on
But that's pretty much it. But I recommend this to everyone else.
I think if you're just interested in how to present story in this medium, like this is something not wholly new, but it's really a sharp-edged way of approaching it.
Yep, loving it.
It's really good.
Loving it. All right, we're going to move on. We're going to talk next. We went from a game that was amazing, and now we're going to talk about a game that may be the worst video game I have played in the last 10 years of my life. I've been playing Night Trap, the 25th Anniversary Edition.
I didn't even realize this came out.
It did. Actually, I don't even know if it's out yet. I got a code from the publisher.
I think I saw it was this week, but I don't know for sure.
Yeah. Oh. For those of you who don't know, Night Trap, I'll give you a quick history lesson on Night Trap. Night Trap was actually a game that was originally designed to be played on a system that used VHS tapes. And it was supposed to allow for interactive storytelling via video. And what ended up happening was a company that was working on that system, it ended up being too expensive to produce, and they bailed. And they had shot all the footage for it in 1987. Well, then along comes Sega CD for the Genesis, the add-on, and it makes perfect sense. FMV with discs, it'll work on there. And it quickly becomes kind of the flagship game for that system, or for that add-on, rather. And I think maybe it also stars Dana Plato, which if
anyone remembers who that is.
If you're men our age, you definitely remember who Dana Plato was. Dana Plato was one of the stars on a game called Different Strokes, Show, yeah.
Different Strokes was not a game.
Yeah, a show called Different Strokes, which was on TV. It was very
popular.
Although
if Ninja Theory wants to do that next.
Yeah. Imagine that. But most guys our age, when we were younger, had a crush on Dana Plato. At least I did, and all my friends did.
I was a little young, I think. She maybe a year or two older than me. You were in the Dana Plato category.
Yeah, but the show is about...
It's a similar thing as like the Alyssa Milano effect, I guess.
Yeah, you're right. And so... her career had already started going down the tubes when she worked on Night Trap.
Well, she had a lot of problems.
She had drug and alcohol problems. I think eventually
she killed her.
It did kill her.
Yeah.
But I think she went through like a porn stage for a while.
I think there was like a softcore moment there.
Yeah. But she's the star of this game. And basically the story of the game is a bunch of teenagers go to this house, and there are these blood-sucking... Well, they're not blood-sucking. Originally, they're supposed to be vampires, and the studio dialed it back, and they're just these weird people dressed in black that have these machines.
Yeah, they're called something. I can't remember.
The augers.
Augers?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they have these machines that suck the blood out of people's necks. And basically how the game works, the original version, you have 8 cameras located around the house. And in the original version, you could not see what was going on in each of those cameras. In this remastered 25th Anniversary Edition, you have 8 windows where you can actually see what's going on each camera, which makes playing the game...
Because technologically, we can do that now.
Right, yeah.
Before, it was like one stream at a time.
That's it.
I mean, this is basically, this kind of game, Night Trap is where Five Nights at Freddy's comes from.
It does a little bit, and there's also a little bit of like Dragon's Lair in it.
Yeah.
In that it's essentially what you're doing.
There was a whole period where we thought full motion video was like the way games were going to go. It's the first, outside of Myst clones, that was basically what people used the CD format for like the early days. And actually, if you'd want, and some of it got really weird. And if you want to see one of the craziest things you will ever see on video, go to YouTube when we're done here. Go to YouTube or pause it and look. I don't care. And look up a game called. It never came out, but the cutscenes, the full motion video cutscenes are up on YouTube. Look up a game called Duelin' Fireman.
I've never heard of this
which
game.
is the craziest damn thing you will ever see. It is like a bunch of like alt and indie rock guys of the like David Yao and like I think like a couple Foo Fighters are in there. Like, they got all these like rock.
How do I not know about this?
It's because it's so weird, and it's basically like a plane crashes during a heat wave and a building gets set on fire, and like 2 fire companies show up and they both hate each other. So the whole game is about these competing firemen trying to be the ones to put the fire out.
Wow.
But it's all like crazy weird that guy character actors are all through it. Like the budget must have been for the time. I think it was put together by like indie film producers or like B-list filmmakers or something. But the game never materialized, never came. It was gonna be like a mini game collection kind of thing, but it never came out. But these videos came out, and it's like it made like 1993, 94. It's all the bad green screen CG stuff. Like there's a terrible, post 9/11. It's like a horrifying thing of a jetliner crashing into a tower and all this stuff. But it's from like the early 90s. It's supposed to be a Sega CD game. And like it's crazy. Duelin' Firemen, or it might be Duelin' Firefighters, but look it up. It's ridiculous.
Here's the problem with these games, though.
But they were all terrible.
FMV-driven games. And there has been a bit of a revival recently. Her Story and a couple other games have kind of...
Those are a little more interesting, but I'm talking about the era when like they thought giving you Sewer Shark was an incentive to buy a Sega CD. That was a very different era.
It was. And the problem is they're trial and error games. And this game is 100% trial and error. Essentially, you follow the 8 different cameras. You see when one of the augers walks into view. You switch to that camera. The camera comes up full screen, and there's a little meter. And when the meter turns red, you hit the trap button. And then, like, a bed will fall down on the auger, or a door will open, and they'll be sucked into the door.
Is it any smoother now?
Yeah, I mean...
Because in like the Sega CD, you press the button, and you waited.
No,
it's
like instantaneous, yeah. But the problem is, and what made me ultimately quit before I finished it, and I did not play this very much back in the day, so I was kind of excited to play it. What made me ultimately quit it is there's a mechanic in the game where you also have to watch the cameras for the family that owns the house, because they're actually like evil, and you pick up on that very quickly. But you need to follow them because what they do is they will go to the basement and switch a code. And when they do that, you need to hear that because there's like 5 or 6 different colors you need to choose from for the code. And if you miss that, the game's pretty much over at that point. And you have to start it all over again. And after I had done that a few times, I was like, screw this, man. I can see why this genre of games has gone away. The other interesting anecdote about Night Trap, a lot of people don't realize, is Night Trap essentially created the ESRB.
Yep, Night Trap and Mortal Kombat were what led to the ESRB.
Yeah, they called it, and it's so funny too, they called it like depraved and disgusting. And like you watch it now, and I mean...
It's like, it's not even a beer commercial.
No.
No. It's nothing.
I mean, there's no nudity in it at all.
No, there's like girls in like really modest nightgowns.
Well, there's one shot where a girl takes her shirt off and she's wearing a tube top.
Yeah. Hey, in 1992,
that's the 80s, baby.
92, that was amazing.
Well, they shot it in 87, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's also very obviously shot. I mean, it's even taking into account, like, 80s lag in the early 90s. This was weird then.
That is what I will say is the only value this game has, is just seeing how whacked out the 1980s were. We were literally, I think it was a whole world on LSD in the 80s. Mm-hmm. The outfits, the way people talk, there's, like, the obligatory, like... lip syncing using a tennis racket as a guitar, like it.
Singing the song "Night Trap."
Yeah, I know.
Which is like, what do you think that song is about?
It's my gosh!
It's the girls all sing "Night Trap." It's. I mean,
here's the thing: it's not so bad that it's good.
No, but it is pretty good if you want to like make some, bets with your friends about who can watch it without cringing or something. Yeah, like that's about as far as it goes. Just if you really care about this game, just go on YouTube. All the cutscenes are there, and you can just watch it like it's a movie, and you will get some laughs because there are some times where it's so dumb it is funny. But that's pretty much the extent of the entertainment value out of this. Do not buy the 25th anniversary. I will say that they did a ton to the game. In addition to what I talked about with the cameras, there's kind of like a horde mode that you can play where you just try to trap as many augers as possible. I mean, I'm impressed they got video quality of that level out of those old record. I mean, they must have found the master.
The video quality looks good. Yeah, I will say. It's still 4:3, obviously. That's what it was shot at. But it's not HD, because they didn't shoot it on film.
No, it's shot on tape, but like it still looks pretty good for something shot on tape in the late 80s.
But let me fall on the sword for you, Sifters. I did it. I got the game. I played it. I can 100% tell you it is not worth picking up, no matter how old you are, how much nostalgia you have for it or Dana Plato.
Yeah, I never liked all those like video or Laserdisc games, but even back in like Dragon's Lair stuff.
I liked Dragon's Lair.
I like Dragon's Lair because I like Don Bluth.
Yeah.
I didn't like, because I remember trying to play Dragon's Lair when I was a kid, and I had no idea what the hell I was. I mean, there's no indication.
That was another game I watched other people play before I would play.
I mean, I was like 6 or 7 when that came out. I just had no clue what was happening.
Well, the other thing about them too was that was in the age when every game cost $0.25 and they cost $1.
Yeah.
And so I would sit there and I would lurk in the arcade and I would wait for some older guy who had money to come in and play Dragon's Lair, and I would just sit there and just try to memorize everything.
Well, I remember when
he would walk away.
There was a guy at arcade.
All right, I put my $1 in, and I'd make it to like the 6th screen or whatever.
There was a guy at our arcade that had the arcade I used to go to at Fashion Island in Foster City, and he could go through Dragon's Lair in 1 quarter or one play.
I think every town had that.
And I'd sit there and
guy.
watch him do that, and I'm like, once you've done that, like there's no
reason to play.
Yeah.
So all you play it for is to see what happens next.
The funny thing is, like, the Laserdisc games are some of the most lost arcade games of the era because they're very hard to emulate. People don't, they take up a lot of space, and really they're very hard. It's very hard to emulate. Like the hardware you're emulating is basically like a Laserdisc player.
Yeah.
Like that's a different thing than emulating like an arcade board. So like basically, if you want to play Laserdisc games, you got to hope somebody reissues it.
Well, they're also finicky.
So you can get like Dragon's Lair 1, 2, and Space Ace from Don Bluth because they remastered those and put those out for like DVD players.
Yeah.
And
it came out for like Xbox.
Yeah, they're on Steam, and then you can get. But there's like things like there was a couple that were based on like. Anime, like there was Galaxy Express 999 had one. There was one called that was based on City Hunter. There was one that was based on Rupan III, the Castle Cagliostro, and a couple other bits of footage were blended in. There was a Starcade episode about that. I remember it was like the whole thing was you could win It was a sponsored episode, so it was I can't remember I think it was called Crime Busters, Crime something, but like it was like because it wasn't named Rupan III, but it was like you had. It was like the whole episode was just that game.
Yeah.
It was 4 rounds or 3 rounds of the same 2 contestants playing that game over and over and over to see who could get the higher score. And basically, like every round, they'd learn which direction to push the stick at a different point. So like they just get one scene ahead each time.
Right.
And so basically, you watch the opening scenes of this 7 times in 20 minutes.
I mean,
that's those games.
Those games, yeah.
And it's like
I mean, really, the only games that ever ended up resonating or doing anything were Dragon's Lair and Space Ace.
Yeah.
Those were the 2 that you saw. In every
maybe
arcade.
a little bit Mad Dog McCree. Mad Dog McCree got some traction because it was kind of like at the time it was the highest tech one, and it looked decent, and they put some effort into the costumes and the sets and stuff, and it came out on a bunch of home systems. But like, would you want to play it today? No.
You don't. Let me tell you, you don't. I suffered through Night Trap. You do not want to play these games. They are not worth it, not worth the effort. So I fell on the sword for you, Sifters, in this case. Let's move on. We're going to talk next about Madden NFL 18. I've been playing this for the last couple days. First thing I would say is, if you're looking for major improvements beyond long shot, which is the new single-player campaign, there really isn't much there. Let's see. As far as like, there's new game styles. Basically, that it's just difficulty settings. Like there's a new like arcade setting that doesn't go far enough to make it like an NFL Blitz style game. But it cuts down on the buttons that you need to use. It's just like basically stiff arm, spin, throw, juke, and that's pretty much it. And that is like one of the big new features as far as gameplay is concerned.
Are Madden people going to care about that? Is that
probably not? I mean, all they really care about is how many money plays there are in the game. I mean, that really, the hardcore Madden player, their whole goal is to find a money play. And then just use that money play over and over until EA patches it out, and then they find another one, and it's like it's like chasing the tail essentially. And then there's a Play Now Live mode where it actually kind of changes what happens inside the game based upon what's happening in the real NFL season, and that's a pretty cool idea. But again, it's something that has been done in other sports games.
Yeah, MLB The Show's been doing that for a while.
Right. I mean, it's not just like the player stats have changed. Like the whole team will change based upon how that team is doing during the season. And so that's kind of cool. It's not obviously a great idea as far as balance is concerned or for competitive play, because you want to learn the strengths.
Especially if you're a Browns fan.
Yeah, that's true. Good point.
Yeah, football
Touche,
joke.
man.
Yeah.
That's good. And then they've made a change to Madden Ultimate Team. There's like squads now, so you can team up with other players to play Ultimate Team. And that's pretty much the extent of the new features, other than Long Shot. But here's the thing: Long Shot's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
I'm really, really impressed with Long Shot. It follows these two childhood friends who grow up playing football together. And they show like this endearing scene at the beginning where they're literally little kids and they're playing with the one guy's dad. And then it just cuts. And now they're these guys who are going to the NFL Combine, and they're trying to make it into the NFL. The lead guy in Long Shot, his name is Devin Wade. He's the better of the two players between the friends. And what happened was his father died while he was in college, and he quit the team. He was playing for the University of Texas, and he quit like in the middle of the season after his father died. And so he was a big talent coming out of high school, but because he dropped out of college, he's kind of soured his chances of making it to the NFL. So it cuts from childhood to this moment where they're getting in their car and they're driving to not like the big combine, like these regional combines where you have to like go to them, rate high enough before you get the invite to the real combine. And so these are like bottom of the rung college players trying to make it basically. That's why they're called long shots. And there's a interactive storytelling in this game. There are conversation trees where you have to make decisions, and the decisions aren't always clear cut. Like you have three choices. You can basically yeah, no, maybe, but they're phrased differently within the context of whatever's happening in the game.
And if you play your cards right, you get to sleep with a blue alien girl.
No blue alien girls yet. Although sleeping with girls may ultimately become a part of it. But basically, every conversation you have, every decision you make, affects your chances of making it to the NFL. So they drive all this way to the combine. They pull up to the hotel that they're supposed to stay at, where they're supposed to check in, and they're running late. And like the one guy's buddy says, "Hey, let's get a selfie before we go in." And you decide, take the selfie, don't take the selfie. Well, if you take the selfie and you go in, the woman at the counter is like, "You're too late, and we're not going to sign you in, and you're not going to be able to," but then you can charm her into signing you on and getting you into the combine. And then you go to the combine. And at the combine, you actually go through drills. And the drills, a lot of the times, are like context-sensitive, like QTEs. Like there's a passing drill where he's like, okay, go left, go right, and then throw. And then you hit the throw button. You have to like move this little cursor to the receiver, and then within time, like hit a specific button or whatever. And once you get through your first combine, like one of the lower-level combines, then you're approached by a production team that's working on a reality TV show. And how you answer the questions related to that affects how your draft status plays out. So every little thing you do ultimately affects whether you're going to make it into the NFL. And once you interact with the TV camera crew and you decide whether you want to do the reality show or not, you drive back, and then you have a flashback. And the flashback is of you in high school playing. And this is where you actually get to play Madden. So you flash back to this high school game. It's your first game you ever played in high school. You're brought off the bench as a freshman, and your team's down by like 3 scores. You have to bring them back and win that game.
And you're a quarterback?
You're the quarterback. And then after that, it cuts to present day again. The one guy's friend has actually got a call from the Dallas Cowboys. He's going there, and you go off to start doing the reality show. And it goes on, and it all leads up to either your player getting drafted into the NFL or not getting drafted, and that's where it ends. So there's no kind of like, oh, now I'm on the Steelers or whatever, and then you build your career through that. I think that might be the next evolution of the mode.
Yeah.
But for now,
like kind of building your way up to like a road to the show kind of thing.
Yeah. I am. It's way better than I thought it was going to be. I'll put it that way. It's been worked on by people who have worked in television. Friday Night Lights, one of the writers who worked on Friday Night Lights, is one of the guys who was writing it.
Got an Oscar winner in it.
Yeah. And the writing can be a little hammy. The facial animation is certainly not up to Hellblade standards.
Right. I feel like hammy is kind of like part and parcel of like sports
A little
stories,
bit.
though. A little bit. I mean, it's
I guess
it's
the
not
best
like
way-
Rudy is a
Yeah.
a fine work of narrative masterpiece. But
I mean,
like,
I
it
guess a
does the
good way
job.
I could compare it is if anybody watches Ballers on HBO. Do you ever watch that show with The
No.
Rock and?
I know what it is.
Yeah, but it's kind of on that same level. It's got like a lot of camp in it, a lot of
I
like
watched Friday
humor.
Night Lights as compared to Friday Night Lights.
Pretty close.
Yeah,
Yeah, I will say like
like, that's fine. I don't-
it
I
is.
don't mind
It
that.
totally is. And I would say that there are some touching moments in it. Like there were and obviously it's a little more personal for me because I just lost my dad. But
dad
they,
thing, yeah.
but there's that whole
Also,
scene.
Mahershala is the dad, and he's really good. So,
Right.
Like I would imagine his performance is solid. I mean, because it feels
Yeah.
like emotionally the story would hinge on the dad's performance selling it.
Yeah, and he's not a huge part of it. Like he's in the first scene, and then like when they go ahead, you're like, where is he? Like what's going on? And then eventually they cut to a scene where he's in his coach's office in college, and he's like, my dad just died. And he's like, I'm leaving. And the coach is like, don't do this. You're going to ruin your life, blah, blah, blah. And then there's like other scenes where he goes back to his room and he finds notes from his dad. It's touching. Like and you know, obviously I'm probably a little bit overboard in that regard with some of my personal experiences of late, but it's well written enough that it will tug on the heartstrings and it makes you root for him. At the very least, you root for both guys because the other guy's not as good. And so you're like, oh, you're kind of behind the 8 ball already. And so, and then there are, here's the thing too, is that like in the conversation trees, there are moments where you can try to help your buddy. But
So your buddy isn't as good as you are.
right. Okay. And so he's kind of lagging behind at the combines. And so you have decisions to make where there's like one drill where your buddy comes up to you and he's like, man, he's like, I'm dropping all these balls. He's like, it'd be a lot better if you threw to me. And he's like, well, you're like, well, it's not my turn to throw. There's another quarterback up. And he's like, just jump in line. And so you're putting your ass on the line there because you're basically going to ignore the person running the combine to jump in line in front of another quarterback to throw.
I wouldn't do that.
I didn't. I did. I said no. But that's like the kind of the decisions and the quandaries that you're put in. Like I'm really impressed with it, man. Like it's way better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah,
and like
well,
I said,
I'm interested. I might buy it.
It's
I haven't bought a
only-
Madden since the 90s.
yeah. The one thing I would say, it is only a few hours long.
Right.
It's like 3.5, 4 hours long.
But I feel like if
So
you can
do
get
it
me
pretty quick.
emotionally invested in the idea of football in that
Yeah, yeah.
regard, like I might play the rest of it with more open mind.
Yeah.
Basically.
I mean,
which I
I'm-
think is the whole goal of that mode,
It is.
right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. And I enjoyed it more than the story modes that I've played in NBA 2K and FIFA. And FIFA was pretty good. I mean, FIFA's to me
good.
was kind of the gold standard until this.
Well, I think this, it's like basketball isn't very interesting to me. Like I think FIFA, like soccer, football, slash football, and American football are to me the most mythic.
Yeah, I can see that.
Aside from like baseball has that element to it, but it's more of a dusty false memory kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
No, I get it.
It's like there's a lot of myth around baseball, but the actual game is sort of like, I think people love baseball because of the surroundings and the trappings of it, rather than what is actually being played.
Well, I think too with
whereas
baseball-
soccer and football feel like the game itself is part of the myth because it's it's a cheesy way to describe it, but like I know football fans describe American football as a war on a film on a field, and like if you really play that up like Friday Night Lights did, like that's a great narrative device
For sure.
And
I think the other thing about baseball too is a lot of people look at baseball players. There's like fat baseball players.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like,
mean,
I think
Babe
people look
Ruth.
at it, they're like, I might be able to do that.
Sure.
Like,
well, yeah, that's the other thing is like baseball. I think is uniquely American in that it's a team sport, but it's very down to individual performance.
Yeah.
Like once that ball comes near you, it's you.
Yeah,
no one
yeah.
else can help you.
Yeah, you're
Like,
right.
and that's true of all sports to some degree, but baseball more like everybody's got their little space. Everyone's up at the bat. It's all on you.
Yeah.
Whereas like
well, if you're an outfielder, it's you.
Yeah.
And like 100
nothing.
yards
Like, it's like,
in
yeah.
every direction. Yeah.
But like in soccer and American football, it's more, there's it's down to performance on an individual level, but everybody's got to work as a unit as well.
Yeah.
Which I think lends itself more to kind of the war metaphor, and I think the idea of making decisions based on, do you help out your buddy? The integration of person to person fits with football and soccer better than it does with baseball, which is why I think while MLB that shows like kind of role playing, be a player and come up through the ranks mode is pretty unparalleled. there's no story mode to that because
and keep in mind,
there's
Madden
not really
does have that too.
Yeah.
Like Madden has that other mode that it's had for forever, where you start out as like a draft pick and go through. There's no narrative in there.
It's just generally more interesting in baseball, I think, because it's so down to It's down to an individual and what the individual's performance is. Whereas like in football, it's like block that guy.
No, you're
like
right.
it's just like okay, that's the end of that play, I guess. So it's interesting because those are the kind of things like when you give me an attachment to a specific player I created, but like taking it one step further, like with long shot, is what's probably going to push me over the edge and pay $60 for a goddamn football game.
For 4 hours, really.
Yeah. But I've watched enough football in the last several years because of the people I've been hanging out with on Sundays that I feel like I might be moderately competent enough to play a season or something.
Yeah, you understand the concepts of the game now at the very least. Yeah, so
at least I know what a nickel does.
Yeah,
it's like it's a step.
There's a lot of people that don't. I mean, you're a step above a lot of people when you say that. So, and look, the other parts of Madden NFL 18 are just as good as they were last year, and last year's game was a good game. So, I think the big question everyone has with Madden is, should I buy it again, or is this the year I should buy it?
I feel like since the last, I don't think, maybe I never bought a Madden game. The last Madden game I had that I had at home and played, I think was something I borrowed from work in like Madden 96 or something on the. Mainly, I played Game Day and 2K. Has been my professional.
Well, Game Day during the PlayStation 1 era was kind of the game.
Oh, Game Day 94, I think it was or 95 was like. I almost failed finals because of that game.
It was a huge game, and then Madden eventually took over. But so the question people always have.
I was always more of a Joe Montana football fan on the Genesis.
Well, that was great.
Sports
Talk, great game, no doubt. So the question everyone asks is like, is this year I Madden? Yes, it is. I think the gameplay is refined to a point where it's. I struggle to see where Madden's gameplay can go at this point. I mean, I really do. Unless they
start breaking what's not broken.
Right, or maybe they do like a first-person mode eventually to really kind of sink you in for VR or something like that. But Madden's gameplay kind of is what it is at this point. It's become very refined over many generations.
I feel like VR football would be terrifying.
I think it would be
like
awesome.
Giant
I'd
men
be
coming
all
at
about it. There is like I think for Rift, there's a sports compilation that has NFL football in it. It doesn't look very good though, but it's still, you're kind of in first person on a football field. But yes, this is the year that you buy Madden, I think.
And if you haven't bought it in like 20 years and you're sort of looking at like, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's still hard for me to tell somebody to spend $60 on it just to play long shot if that's the only reason that they're buying. And in that case, maybe I'd wait for a price drop.
Basically, it's kind of the thing where I've been on the fence several times the last few years. And like this might just be the thing that finally pushes me over. Yeah. Because I'm like, maybe I should try football again. Maybe I should try playing Madden again just to see if I understand the game better. And now, like the fact that at the very least there will be this story mode that like engages me. Yeah. Even if I don't, I'll get through it in 4 hours. Maybe if I bounce off the actual football, I'll just trade it in or something. Yeah.
That's the other thing. To trade in value from Madden is typically pretty good. Yeah. So I recommend it. The other thing that was interesting about this game before we move on is that there is NCAA licensed stuff in the game. Oh, okay. So when he plays for the Texas Longhorns, they actually show footage of him as a Longhorn playing against the Oregon Ducks.
So maybe
they're cracking the door open to make that relationship more fruitful in the future.
I mean, that would be a good way to incorporate that without having to do a full college football game. Yeah. So in like the NFL, whereas like baseball has the minor leagues and the Double A and everything. Yeah. So is basically like NFL basically uses the college teams as their minor league, more or less? College
is the minor league, without a doubt. But there's also kind of these other splinter leagues around. There used to be the USFL and all these other leagues. The Canadian Football League is another kind of pipeline into the NFL. The Arena Football League, not quite as much, but it's also a pipeline.
Yeah. LA that's the KISS team?
The KISS team, yeah. KISS owns LA's Arena League team. So, and that's a whole other beast. Like that's played inside with like hockey boards with pads. It's crazy. I would say this is the most purchasable Madden in a really, really long time. So, and it may end up being the only really killer app that Xbox One X has. We'll get to that here in a little bit. But I definitely we're going to get to it right now. Right. But I do recommend Madden NFL. Yeah, it's like kind of a flagship third-party game for Xbox One X. So, and it also is 4K on PlayStation 4. There is some rumors flying around this week that the 4K checkerboard stuff was going to come in a later update for the PS4 version. That turned out to not be true. Right out of the box, it works with 4K on PS4 Pro. So I recommend it if you've been sitting on the fence for Madden, or maybe you bought Madden the first year Generation 8 consoles came out, and you're like, this is good enough for me. I'm waiting for something big to buy the next one. This is it. So hope you guys enjoy it as much as I did. Let's move on. We're going to talk next about Crackdown 3. This is the only topic in today's show where you don't actually talk about a specific game as far as like the final product. Crackdown 3 delayed to not even to a specific date. Just spring 2018. My
guess would be before the end of March.
Yeah, probably.
Keep it in the fiscal year.
It'll be before March or April 1st, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
They're gonna need it.
Yeah.
Because that launch lineup for Xbox One X is looking real thin right about now. I mean, thinner than thin.
I mean, that makes your flagship basically Forza, which has already been out for a month at that point.
Yeah, on just like Xbox One. Yeah. What a monumental disaster that is.
How in the world is it taking this long to make a Crackdown game? Like,
remember they had all that cloud stuff that I'm thinking that maybe they just can't get that sorted out, and if that's the case, just get rid of it. Like, whatever features that used it, just ditch it. Like, it's not worth it.
Get it out. It's funny, one of our friends, like, he was talking about what a ridiculous thing this is, and he's like, he found an article from I think it was CNN. It was like some mainstream outlet, but basically they were reporting on Microsoft at E3 2014.
Yeah.
And it was like
the same games.
No, the whole focus was Crackdown 3, Scalebound, and Fable. Fable Legends.
Yeah.
And it's like doesn't exist, never coming out. It's just it's like nothing exists from that era. Like nothing ever made it out.
What is going to happen to Xbox One X, Matt? Nothing.
I think it's just going to sit there.
I mean, look, some people are going to get it just because of the backwards compatibility and the upscaling and things like that. It's not going to just completely flop.
No, but it's not going to do what it could. I mean, I don't know if Crackdown is really going to move a lot of units to begin with.
More than Forza, I would guess.
I mean, more than nothing will.
Yeah,
that's true.
Because the third-party stuff that they showed at E3 isn't really. I just don't know.
I mean, I know IGN did that article like yesterday or the day before about like it was right after this was announced, basically like how I'd fix the Xbox lineup, and like while there's a lot of stuff that they mentioned that I would play, I don't think any of that makes Xbox amazing. I don't know how you get out of this hole they're in.
Well, see, the other problem too is that it's more expensive.
Right.
So you're asking someone to spend more money on a console
that has less
to offer
outside of slight performance advantages.
Yeah.
Which we don't even know if. I mean, I think a lot of at least hardcore gamers are rightly skeptical of this kind of thing after how the Pro performed out of the gate, where it was not up to snuff, or at least up to what Sony said it was going to be. So I think there's going to be a lot of wait and seers on this, and all I can say is the Xbox better perform.
I think going back to what I was saying on last topic is probably the smartest thing that Microsoft could do right now is hitch its wagon to Madden.
Yeah.
Because if there is one game that has been built natively in 4K to work on Xbox One X that actually has a chance to move some hardware, it's not Forza, it's Madden.
Well, I think and this is like, hindsight by far, and who knows if the relationship was even, amenable enough to even make this happen. They should have thrown money at Bungie for Destiny exclusivity, like in the way, not full exclusivity.
At anyone at this point, throw money at anybody.
But having Destiny, like the way promoted for Xbox, the way it's promoted for PlayStation, that would be a big boon because Destiny's got a lot of eyes on it and pre-ordering very well.
It could have made a huge difference.
Could have been a big deal.
It really could have been a game changer. Mm-hmm. And I texted you this the other day. I love Phil Spencer, but he should probably be fired. Think about what's happened under his tutelage at Xbox. I mean,
I can see him trying to bring it back in, after kind of the Matric years, where they dismantled everything they had going for them in favor of trying to make an ESPN box. Yeah. But it just hasn't come together. And I'm not saying I would have done a better job because
you never say that. When look, I love Phil Spencer. He is a great guy. Every time I've interviewed him, I've walked away from him impressed. On many levels. He's smart, he's sharp, he's a real gamer, he's polite, he's cordial, he's real. Mm-hmm. But the bottom line is whatever decisions that he's been making or the people that he has making decisions for him, they have not worked out at all.
Mm-hmm. I think my main thing right now is you got to get Fable back in the mix. I don't think that's a big system seller necessarily, but it could be if you played your cards right and like further, it just adds texture to the lineup.
You're right, but it's funny. I think back to the Xbox 360 era when I was doing Invisible Walls, and I remember sitting on Invisible Walls saying, it's the same 4 games every other year every year.
But at this point, I'll take the same 4 games over like another damn developer diary for Sea of Thieves.
No, you're right. Like that's what I'm saying. Like it's to the point now where I'm like opining for the Xbox 360 days.
Yeah. If only I had to do a bunch of capture Gears of War games this week, and I was like, man, why don't we get another Gears of War? It was like it was just last year we got Gears of War 4, and I'm just like, yeah, how about some new Gears of War? We got nothing.
I'll take anything at this point.
You can take a Crackdown game.
Yeah, I would actually play Crackdown. It's like I finally got my Xbox One replaced. It literally has sat broken for months. And I just didn't even bother getting it fixed. I was just like, why? I don't need to play anything on it. Finally sent it in, got it replaced. Kind of cheap that they sent me an old refurbed original Xbox One. Like they didn't send me an S or offer like, we'll give us $50 and we'll send you an S. None of that. I got the same unit, the launch unit again. And I hooked it up under my TV, and all I use it for is like YouTube. Because I have my PS4 in the back for capturing right now. So
I always notice, like, I have a very large Xbox friends list, and like everyone. I mean, there's usually like any given evening, there's 10 to 15 people on, and it's all watching a video, watching TV, watching TV, watching TV, watching TV, watching a video, watching Netflix. Like no one's playing anything.
I know. Well, there's nothing to play.
They're just using it to watch movies.
Yeah,
and like.
I guess Microsoft is finally getting its wish. It wanted it to be
that's what you wanted.
The entertainment hub of the living room. We can go all the way back to the first press conference for Xbox One where they said TV how many times. But and that's what that box has turned into.
Oh, yeah. But it's like the problem with that is also like how many times do you think about your cable box in a day?
Yeah.
0, unless it stops working.
Even less now. Like I hardly ever even watch like
if you even have cable.
Anymore. Yeah. So,
but like I don't know how you. I mean, if I were them, I would definitely I would find a way to salvage whatever had been done on Scalebound, and you got to get some titles in the pipeline here.
Canceling Scalebound. I don't care how bad that game ran. I don't care how that game was not coming together. That was a bad decision. Like,
yeah, you should have just gone through.
Just stick with it. Like you're already that far in. Look, if you're just having problems running on Xbox One or Xbox One S, well, damn, wouldn't it be nice to have Scalebound coming out at the end of the year as an Xbox One X only game? And I know that goes against everything Microsoft's doing right now. It wants everything to be playable on all But man, like at this point, they could really use.
Just had to. I mean, as Joe said in Reservoir Dogs, you just had to shit your pants and dive in and swim.
Yep.
It's like. It's better than having nothing on the schedule.
Yeah, and Gamescom's coming up this weekend. It starts actually, Sifters, and obviously keep your eye on the site. We'll be curating all the best stuff from there. But their press conference is, I believe, Sunday night at midnight Pacific, like 3 a.m. East Coast time or whatever. And I'm just, this is kind of like its last gasp here.
It's just going to be 2 hours of a Forza race.
Like
they're just going to put up a video of a car driving and leave.
I'm seriously wondering what is it going
to be?
I mean, it needs to blow us away.
Like, there's got to be some stuff we don't know about.
It has to blow us away.
You can't letting Crackdown slip is the Microsoft equivalent this year of letting Mario slip for
you're right.
Nintendo.
You're absolutely right.
It's your
so
linchpin.
Bad. Yeah. So
even if it wasn't very, I mean, I think Mario's going to be a way better game than Crackdown 3 ever could be. Basically,
it's not about relevance.
But I'm just in terms of like having something to draw people who own that system in to say, here's a reason to turn my system on.
Yep.
Which is sometimes the most important thing, giving me a reason to use that hardware.
Just turn the thing on sometimes, so you get exposed to the dashboard with, hey, here's all the hot games.
Oh, I have this. Oh, yeah, I have that. Especially with like sometimes digital stuff, I don't know what's on there for months and
You're
months.
Absolutely right.
And like poking through I turned it on for the first time this week because I had to capture some Gears of War stuff, and I looked around. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that game. That's a cool thing.
Yeah.
It's like, and I didn't buy any of it, but
still,
like I didn't know it was there because I never turned that system on.
It might encourage you to turn it on again in the not as distant future.
Yeah, maybe I will.
Maybe you won't.
Maybe I won't. Maybe something good. Maybe something bad. I mean, I know Wario64 was saying that the pre-orders for the Xbox One X are going to go up during the Sunday press briefing.
Yeah, so pre-orders go up on Sunday as well. So if you guys are already sold and you want to buy it, you just want a high-tech console.
Yeah, please tell us why, and then pre-order.
Look, I'm not going to judge anybody for wanting it, but if you do want it, pre-orders are going to go up. It actually will probably be like Monday.
But it's like, I mean, I guess there are hardcore Microsoft fans.
Sure, for sure.
But like, I understand that less than I understand the hardcore Nintendo fans, because at least with the Nintendo fans, like, if you want that kind of game, you want that kind of thing, Nintendo will eventually deliver it.
Yeah.
But with Microsoft, I feel like you're just looking at a giant howling void. And, like, unless, like, Halo is your life, and I apologize, because the last 2 lives you've had were not wonderful, but, like, I don't know what you're waiting for.
Well, some people are going to buy this just because they want to play third-party games in the best possible fidelity. And I get that.
If you're sticking to consoles, this is the new best way to experience multi-platform.
But I think only people with a ton of disposable income are going to buy
or
this.
no system.
Right,
period.
or the hardest of the hardcore Xbox fans who are going to buy a new Xbox system no matter what.
I mean, there's an element of that to me, but I feel like I'm really invested in the PlayStation architecture at this point in terms of
I have all my games. I play all my games on it. It's too late. It's just like I was with Xbox 360 last generation.
I've even gotten, look, man, I never thought I'd say this, but I think I like the DualShock 4 better than the Xbox One controller at this point. I don't like it better than the Elite, but I use the Elite on the on my PC.
Yeah.
But the regular controller, I kind of feel a little more comfortable on the DualShock 4. Maybe just because I've used it so much more.
You got used to it, yeah.
I still don't really like any of them tremendously. Other than
I still like the Xbox controller a lot. It's still my favorite controller.
I like the 360 controller better than the Xbox One. It's,
yeah,
it's subtle, but it's there.
Yeah, but I still think Xbox has the best controller, in my opinion, anyway. All right, let's move on. We're going to talk next about No Man's Sky. We have not talked about this since our legendary throwdown.
Speaking of just
a year ago.
Yeah. Speaking of just get it out no matter what it is.
So, huge update after the big ARG that they did that was brilliant. Comes this gigantic update from Hello Games, pretty much out of nowhere.
Atlas Rising.
Most people do not follow ARGs, so had no idea this was coming.
I mean, I was only vaguely paying attention to ARG because I don't understand how people figure that stuff out.
I don't either.
It's amazing to me.
I don't get it either.
It's like, let's figure this, and they pulled this out of this, and then they analyzed the sound and played it backwards, and we saw that the waveform looked like an armadillo, and so we went to Armadillo, Texas, and we went to. It's just like, how the fuck? What do you do during the day?
I don't know how to do it either, but I'm glad they do it. Yeah. Thank you very much.
The after-action reports are amazing, but it's just like your brain works in a way that I don't understand, and I'm glad you're here.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. So you've been playing through this new update, and off camera before we started, one of your biggest points was if this were the game that was released a year ago when it launched, it would be a whole different story.
Yeah, I don't think the reaction to this game would have been as violent as
which literally
as
it was.
I mean, look, because I think we all agree, even as someone who loved the vanilla game at launch, played 150 some hours of it, and picked it as my favorite game of the year, with all its flaws. Like the people who were saying, I think at the time I said the people were saying this is a $60 early access game. Like I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
And I think as we've seen them slowly, they had the Founders update and the some other update with add the vehicles and stuff.
Yeah.
And then now we have the Atlas Rising update. I think as we've moved through all these 3 major updates, I think that theory has been proven correct. Like what you can go play right now after the Atlas Rising update and a few patches to make a few things work because there were a few bugs in there when it launched. I think what we're playing now is what the game was supposed to be.
It's what he promised.
It was a year, not totally. I mean, there's still, look, the fact that multiplayer is just orbs looking at each other and like Fable style, and there's another Fable reference. And then if you interact with each other, a little monument gets put down that says, these 2 players met each other here on this day. And like, okay, cool, but like, I mean, there were interviews where people ask, like, can you see what you look like? He's like, no, but other people can see what you look like. So the only way to see what your character looks like is for another player to see you. And it's like, well, now we're orbs. So either we're supposed to be orbs carrying a gun and flying a ship, and no one's commenting on that. The fact that an orb wandered into their space station and wants to buy plutonium.
I never thought about the fact that there's no reflective surfaces in that game to see your character.
Well, because there's in the story, because there's like a 30-hour story mode now. There's a story now beyond just follow the Atlas things to center. So there's a whole story mode now with all cutscenes and
really?
and like radio chatter and like quests to do and like fly around and get this and talk to this person and do this and talk to these guys and learn these words and see. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in here.
Wow, that seems kind of at odds with what I've played of the game.
Yeah, well, here's the thing, because there's been hints of some of what this story, because the story is essentially, I'm not done with it. It's very long.
Yeah.
But I've kind of. And the sad thing is, I refuse to start my game over.
Oh, yeah, screw that.
I have 200 million credits. I have a freighter. It looks like a Star Destroyer. Yeah. I am not giving this shit up. But if you start a new game with the way it's all been patched, I feel like this is all going to come together so much better than it did before. Because all this stuff that I'm doing now clearly is supposed to happen in the first star system you're in.
Yeah.
It's just sort of moving you into the game and introducing you to how this all works. But still, and the thing I really like about it is, I don't know if you remember those, you'd find the abandoned bases, the abandoned houses where everything was overgrown with weird stuff, and there was usually you interacted with the console, and there's a little short story kind of thing about very Lovecraftian, weird,
for sure.
elder gods. So that's totally what this is about.
Oh, okay. Well, I kind of figured that was going to be the case.
Yeah, but the fact that they've embraced it, and it's like a Heinlein story shot through the prism of H.P. Lovecraft, except not nearly as racist as that would be.
Yeah. So wait, in the cutscene, do they have cutscenes that show your character?
No,
they don't.
But there's an implication that you are not one of the other races or necessarily human.
Oh, okay.
Early on, there's a fourth race that's introduced, where you find it's somebody's stranded somewhere, and it's another race you've never seen before, and you see them in hologram when you communicate with them early on, and they're another traveler like you,
okay,
because you're constantly called the traveler or whatever,
yeah.
or the jury or whatever, and there's a point where they say, "Didn't you notice that you aren't like anyone else you've met on this?"
Well, I can't see my damn self.
Yeah, well, there's an implication that maybe you're one of these aliens.
Gotcha.
This type of alien. Or maybe you might be human, whatever you want to think. It's left ambiguous so far. But there's this whole thing about, reality is sort of shredding, and, this other character might be from another reality, and, you might be from another reality, and there might be, you might not belong here, and, the whole way the Traveler thing works was you might be going through and cataloging stuff for another reality that wants to encroach on that reality, but there's, a whole Elder God Cthulhu thing going on. It gets crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, there's some really cool, and I don't know how it's
going to overt storytelling, or is it just finding, logs hidden here and there?
No, there's, you communicate with people and fly places and talk to people, mostly on
Is there voice acting?
No, because it's just it's
gibberish,
and there's text boxes. But it really fleshes out what's happening in the world. The portals work now, and there's an implication that maybe the portals don't send you to the same universe every time, and because there's no way to tell.
Right.
And it builds kind of the universe out, the world out. I don't say world because there's a lot of worlds in this game.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's it builds out the reality of what they're trying to say in a much more interesting way than just finding a little log. And I mean, even down to when you go to those abandoned places now. What you previously you just went up and interacted with it, right? Now you interact with it, you have to clean it off, and you have to take junk off it and stuff. And sometimes you'll run into things where you have to instead of just interacting with the escape pod thing to get the blueprint, blueprints are all bought now from vendors. So you have to get nanites, but to get to some of this stuff, you have to repair it, and you have to have the equipment and stuff to repair these things and all that. There's so much more now, and
is it a free update?
Yeah.
So if somebody were to go out and buy No Man's Sky right now,
you'll have a lot of downloading to do.
You won't play it for 3 hours, but when you do,
but no, it's all free. Everything, no problem. Yeah,
it's like a different game now.
It's a totally different game. I mean, it's not a totally different game. It's still better inventory management, crafting stuff, and wandering
resource
around
gathering.
planets.
Yeah,
but and the other thing is they've redone the whole planet generating algorithm or whatever it is, and so the downside is the Swagosaurus no longer exists.
No, he does.
He does.
You just don't know where he is.
But out there somewhere in that 13 billion star system, somewhere out there he's there, and I will find him again.
Yeah.
But he's not on the planet.
So you went back to the planet and he was gone.
That's my home base. Is on that planet, and there's no Swagosaurus anymore. There's still life, but they just regenerate. Because the thing is, they put a lot of new things in there. There's airless planets, there's desert planets. The sandworms are supposedly in there somewhere now.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone's found one, but there's exotic biomes now. So I have footage that I think we'll put up here of a moon I found that I call the bubble moon because there's bubbles everywhere. And it's soap bubbles, in the they're little ones and big ones rotating in the sky.
So and just a lot more world variety.
Yeah, you find these things, and it's just the soap bubbles don't do anything, but it sure looks cool.
Sure,
and it's
yeah.
like it's a thing that you found that maybe someone else. I saw a screenshot of somebody.
Cosmetics make a difference.
Yeah, somebody found a world where the whole ground is made up of hexagons. It's just like you look at it, it looks like a Tron grid.
Wow.
Like all the ground is just hexagon shaped in like a grid of hexagons. There's like
that's not the No Man's Sky I know.
No, and there's like so now, and like now this is from the previous update, but you can build like buggies and vehicles.
Yep.
So those vehicles can go underwater.
Right.
And you can drive around underwater and look at stuff, and there's stuff underwater. The other thing that I didn't even...
Yeah, whatever happened to like all that crazy sea life that they showed in the trailers? Like,
I don't know. There's still some weird
stuff almost
in
like
there.
dinosaur-looking things. Like, where did all that stuff go?
You see them.
Oh, you do?
I mean, they don't do anything. That's the
Right.
thing is the animals are still there, and the animals are interested, and they still don't really do much.
You scan them.
Well, you scan them, but I've seen more predators chasing prey. That's about the only real difference I've seen. I guess they made... one of the things people complain was like the it's called the Diplo.
After like
type,
the
like
music producer DJ?
No, after the Diplodocus.
Oh, okay.
The giant sauropod looking thing, where we saw like the giant sauropod dinosaurs, and people are, it's not the game. They are in the game, but they were just really rare. So now you're more likely to find stuff of that body type, and they're gigantic. I mean, they really are big.
Wow.
And like the other thing, I didn't even know. There's so much more to discover. I didn't even know this until like 3 days ago. But if you're in your buggy and you've got your scanner, you can go up through the scanner and you can scan. You remember one of the big things that was annoying in the original, the vanilla game was you had to use those little beacon things and like whatever you picked like find me shelter, or find me some ruins or whatever, and it would kind of randomly find you something in that. On the buggy, on the vehicles, you can pick whatever you want to detect.
Oh, that's kind of huge, actually.
Detect a drop pod if you want to upgrade your inventory. Detect a depot
if
you
that's
want to go
huge.
find equipment. If you want, so like that, and that's free. You don't have to spend energy. You don't have to spend anything to do that. And in fact, you can get in your buggy, detect that, get out, get in your ship, and fly there. You don't even have to drive anymore. It just puts it on your map. And then
which just does seem kind of stupid.
Yeah.
Because it's like, why do I have to get in the vehicle to use this and then get out?
What if I just strap this to the ship?
I'm just going to duct tape the buggy to the side of my ship.
But that actually does bring up something that I think is another big improvement that started with this update, which is so now the ship and the freighter and your suit have separate slot sections for technology and cargo.
Okay.
So you have your main slot. So I have a 48 slot fully upgraded exosuit. Now there's a technology section. So you click on technology, you can have up to like 8, I think, slots that are just for putting new upgrades in. So they don't take up inventory slots.
That's good.
And then there's a cargo section which has more, I think.
And is that just for you because you've already expanded your main inventory?
No, it's in general.
Everybody.
It's for everyone. So you choose when you go to the drop pods now, instead of just upgrading your main inventory, you can choose which type to upgrade.
That's huge.
And so the cargo,
that's like a game changer.
So the cargo inventory, you start with nothing, but you have to upgrade with a drop pod. I think it's like 50,000 credits, and it's like $7 million to fully upgrade the suit with the new. So the slots in the cargo section hold 500 of an item, just like your ship does.
Okay.
So you can like in the cargo, and it's kind of awkward to swap them around, but you can still access them for crafting. So you can stuff you use all the time, like plutonium or like stuff like that. You can hoard that in your cargo section, and it doesn't take up the main inventory, which you can then use for, because you're bringing like objects and like specific items and specific like harder to find elements and substances around for crafting, and like there's things you like, so like you can do like the hydroponic stuff in your, so if you want to make money, because like some of the stuff costs a lot of money. And one of the other things they did is there used to be the ship crash routine where like you find a crash ship, you go there, the ship either has one less or one more cargo slot than you have, and you buy. So the way that works now is you can find ships, because there's A class, B class, C class, and S class ships, and you can find ships that have way more cargo space than you have, but you have to unlock the extra space with credits.
Okay.
So instead of constantly upgrading by one slot, like for 1,000 ships or whatever, you find a ship you like and it's got a bunch of slots. You can then just pay to unlock them as you play.
Oh, cool!
Instead of like hoping one day you find a ship that you like the look of, but also has enough cargo space. Now the cargo space is like something you unlock over time, and you can stick with a ship much longer than you would have otherwise. So there's a lot of quality of life improvements.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of them. But Matt, do you think it's too late for this game?
Considering
it already sold pretty well. They've made their money.
Sold very well. It hit the top 10 Steam sellers a few days ago. I mean, that was right before the sale ended. It was on sale for like $24, I think.
Okay.
And it's at one point I think it had like almost 1 million like players or something.
Wow.
Or maybe it was 93,000. But people came back. They absolutely came back for this game after this patch.
And is it worth it for our viewers to come back and play it again? Particularly right now when, as we've seen from this show, there's a lot of good stuff coming out right now.
I mean, here's the thing. If you're interested, if it's been one of those things where you're saying, I don't know, like it's good. It's good. But would I say pay 60 because it's back to $60 now on Steam.
Yeah.
Would I pay $60? Not really, but if you can find it on sale or for half price or something, because if you're on the fence, I don't want to say like, yes, go get it. It's amazing, because I think it is pretty amazing now, but it's also in comparison to what I played a year ago.
Yeah.
It is amazing compared to what they launched with. Absolutely. But you still got to like a survival game that is there's a lot of inventory management, there's a lot of looking for stuff, there's a lot of poking around, there's a lot of, like the bubble thing. Like if you watch that bubble moon footage and you're like, I want to see things like that, even if they don't do anything.
Right.
Like this is the game for you. But it's like, it's and people always compare it to Elite Dangerous, which I think is a mistake, because it's like
they're very different games.
Elite Dangerous is a space sim,
which
is trying to simulate what it's like to fly a spaceship around
a
realistic cosmos, and this is an arcade game, survival game that's basically trying to simulate what it's like to live on the front of a book cover from 1943. It's a very different approach.
Yeah.
So I would say it's worth taking a shot at if you can find it at a price you're comfortable with.
Okay.
Would I say full price? Not unless if you played it last year and you got a refund or something because it just wasn't the game you wanted, even though you really wanted to like it. I think now might be the time to give it another shot. You might be surprised. I mean, there's the improvements to the planet generation. I mean, I've found planets that are full biomes. I've found ones that have canyons and rivers and cliffs that like come up over like valleys that are full of like rainforests and stuff. I mean,
it's kind of turned into mostly the game that he promised.
Pretty much, and the
game that was shown before it was released.
Yeah, it's certainly if this had come out a year ago, or if they delayed it to now, and it came out, I think people would have been like, yeah, this is pretty much what they said. It's maybe not as amazing as we hoped it would be in our heads,
right? But
at least isn't missing. I would call this pretty much feature complete.
Imagination is a dangerous thing.
It is.
It's hard to topple.
But there's a lot of stuff to be done in there, and it's still it's still a little by the numbers in terms of like okay, you go up to the space station, you talk to this alien, the alien has the same interaction, but and also like there's stuff that tracks things more. So now there's things that track your relationship with all three alien races and there's all three guilds. There's guilds now, and you level those relationships up by doing like you level up in the space police bounty hunter guild by killing space pirates and stuff, or like it keeps track of how many words of each language. It's basically it's like it gives you a lot more information to work with, and it's much more friendly about going back to planets you've been to. You can just go to the log and pick the thing and say, make that your target and go back. You can teleport back to your base from any space station. You can teleport to at least a certain number of space stations you've already been to from your base.
It sounds like Hello Games played the game like the rest of us.
I think
wait, why did we do this?
I think they really did sit down, because there's little things where you're like, a lesser developer would have, my base, when I came back to the game, because of the regenerated terrain, my base was about 300 feet in the air, because now it was a valley where it had been up there. So I teleport in the base, and I walk out, and I'm like, what the hell? Like,
what do I do?
I can't get back. So I found another planet, and I found another base that I could move into, and this is on my PC game. My PS4 game, I'm still on the planet of the Swagasaurus, which is literally what it's called, by the way. That's actually what I called it. But I went and found another base in a planet that I found acceptable, and I switched that. And as soon as you switch your base just appears.
Oh wow!
You have to rebuild the whole thing.
You don't, or you do?
You don't.
Oh,
it just whatever you've got on your old base, it just pops up in the new place.
Well, that's good at least.
And so there's a lot.
Again, they played the game.
They played the game, and they found this is annoying. Let's not do it this way. So they did it the other way. And there's enough stuff to balance that, so you want to you can grow. If you want to make money, you can grow I used to just run around and pick up Gravitino balls all day using the glitch that lets you carry 100 in a slot. So I made hundreds of millions of dollars listening to podcasts and just running around picking up Gravitino balls.
Their economy is
The economy is much better. The economy actually reacts to you. So if you sell stuff in a system, each system has a description of its economy state. So if you can find a rich system and buy, because rich systems will sell stuff for less because they have a surplus. You buy that, go back to an industrial like
supply and demand
system, go back. But if you sell too much at once, you lower the price. So like you can't just exploit that over and over, which I used to exploit all the time. So I had to come up with a new way of making money. The thing I'm doing right now is I set up hydroponics to grow cactus and something else. I think it's mordite or copperite. It's like the plant.
It doesn't matter.
And
you're growing
it's
stuff.
a couple of things. So you got to grow a lot of it, but you grow enough of it, you make this thing called liquid explosive, and it sells for 1 million credits.
No.
So I got a farm that's basically only making
You're in the
that.
Fireworks business.
Basically, yeah. Just making nitroglycerin.
Hear that little truck stop right at the border of Maryland and Pennsylvania that we would go to on July 4th.
Yeah, selling
Well, it sounds like
intergalactic M80s.
Yeah. So it sounds like if people were hoping to get the game that it had been marketed as, they can get it now.
Yeah, it's much closer to, and I think there's still some distance to go. There's
You think they're going to do it though? You think this is it?
No, I think there's probably one more thing. I think they
probably not this big though.
Well, I think there's going to be another. I think they're going to deliver on the multiplayer eventually. I think they're going to upgrade because right now it's orbs looking at each other, but the joint exploration.
I could see because that was kind of the knife that was twisted a good bit at launch. Yeah. I think that was one of the things that he really couldn't refute.
Right.
Was that,
really,
I did say that, and no, it's not in the game.
Right. Of all the things that because a lot of the stuff that he said was going to be in the game was technically in the game. It just wasn't very impressive.
Yeah.
The one thing that you cannot get around is he lied about the multiplayer.
Yeah.
There's no way in hell they didn't know that wasn't going to be.
And it was still a year away.
Yeah.
And it's still not what he said it was going to be.
Still not quite there. So. But I feel if they'd launched with the orb multiplayer, he would have had some explaining to do.
But people wouldn't
have freaked out about it, and it would have been like, because look. And it's all. I mean, the thing that really hurt him was that even up to a month before release, he was still sitting there talking about multiplayer in interviews.
Why would he do that?
And there's no way they didn't know.
No sense. I don't get it. I mean, he may have just been out of his mind after working.
That could be.
I mean, there are nights where I feel like I'm about to lose my mind. So I feel a little sympathy for him. When you get to a certain point, working so many hours and getting so little sleep.
But I give them credit for the fact that those guys stuck.
They did.
Stuck with it, and they made it more or less the game that they said they were going to make it. And I mean, obviously, there's a lot of other things that we probably will never know about.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe someday we will. But
maybe, but like if Jeff Keighley decides to go.
He hasn't done one of those in a long time.
Do that interview and because there's stuff about how the flood, which the
final days
became a problem. Yeah, which became a big problem with them. They had to basically rebuild a bunch of stuff in the game, and then at some point, supposedly Sean Murray sold his house to keep the lights on at the office. And I mean, these guys.
Where's NoClip at? Isn't that what NoClip does? Shouldn't it be?
Yeah, that's true.
He's probably trying. I mean, I would think he's trying.
Yeah. What's O'Dwyer's next thing?
I don't know.
I just saw what his next thing was, and I was like, "Oh, that's going to be good." And I can't remember.
It probably wouldn't be as good as this, though.
No, but you got to wonder, so many people riled up about it. You want to wonder, it's like, can you tell the full story of this and not worry about legal trouble?
Not.
It could be somebody sue you for fraud in that situation. Because I feel like that's been dismissed. I don't think.
Well, you wait 7 years.
Yeah.
Statute of limitations.
If that is what that is in the UK, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? All right, we're going to go from a game...
Basically, I think we should go to Guildford, find these guys in a pub, and
do it.
Ask them.
Yeah.
Even if we don't put it on camera. I'm just like, I just need to know. I need to know what happened. I love you guys. I don't want to ruin anything for you, but I need to know what you were thinking.
Because I don't think anyone will ever know that. I mean, I don't think they'll ever be able to explain why he was talking about multiplayer a month before it came out. There's no excuse for that.
But even if you watch this video, those interviews, he's got this weird grin on his face, like he knows he's gonna get killed later for this. But he's just just gotta keep going.
You gotta be honest.
You gotta admit it. You gotta admit that you couldn't even get the orbs working.
All right, we're gonna switch from a game that came out and fell well below a lot of people's expectations to a game that came out and pretty much was exactly what I thought it was gonna be, and that game is Agents of Mayhem.
Yeah. So it is.
I mean, it is pretty much exactly what I thought it was going to be.
It's not quite what I thought it was going to be, although it's very close. There's more Overwatch to this than I thought. Not in gameplay-wise, but in terms of how they present the team and the world, I feel like they're taking a lot of cues from Overwatch's lore.
I also feel like it will not be the last game to do that.
Yeah, I feel like that's probably true. I feel like you're going to get, because like just the way they present, when a new agent gets introduced, they get a 2D hand animated cutscene thing where it shows their backstory, and then it's a team run by a bad guy who turned good, maybe, and there's like bad guys and good guys on the team, but they're fighting worse bad guys, and like everybody's got relationships with everybody. I mean, there's a section in everyone's like personnel file that just says relationships, and you have to unlock it. Like you have to play enough to unlock it to see what everybody's relationship with each other is. Some people are dating each other, some people hate each other. It's like, and it's like this is the Overwatch fandom. This is what people do with the lore of Overwatch, and that's what they're trying to do here. It's just not nearly as interesting. But it's not bad.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I would say is the aesthetics of the game are probably its strongest suit.
Mm-hmm. So when I started this, I'm playing it on PC. When I started this, holy shit, the performance was terrible. If you got in a car, 20 frames a second on dual Titan X's. I mean, it was like the streaming of the asset streaming. I mean, just like choppy sound, the music would cut out, like it would just hang for 6 to 10 seconds sometimes. Also during combat once in a while. At one point, it took 30 seconds to quit. And then I upgraded the drivers.
Oh.
So I didn't have the NVIDIA game-ready drivers, whatever, and I upgraded them, and after that, it runs fine.
It's crazy, though, that you had to get a separate driver just...
I don't know what's in this thing that the old drivers just could not figure out, but the new drivers fixed it. It runs it as a rock-solid 60.
That's PC gaming.
Woo, PC
I mean,
gaming.
that's the kind of stuff you just
So I spent a whole day just being like, oh, this game is just terribly optimized. And then I upgraded the drivers, and I'm like...
Did you not get an alert, like, as soon as you booted up the game?
That NVIDIA, the GeForce experience doesn't talk to me anymore for some reason.
Weird.
And sometimes I forget. I just don't remember.
You just miss it.
And also, it's like, I don't know, I just didn't, for whatever reason, this game didn't seem too big to me. Like, it just didn't seem that something that they'd push. It's like, oh, we did a whole update for this thing. I mean, Lawbreakers, maybe, and they did. Lawbreakers in the same update, but it didn't occur to me to check that. Also, because it's not like there's anything in this game that felt like it would require like a big, crazy thing. But there it was, and so it runs fine.
It's not a bad-looking game.
No, it looks good. I like the art style, but it just doesn't feel like it should. I mean, you can see that in the options, little thing, it says how much VRAM you're using. It's using like 3 out of 16 gigs. It's just like you shouldn't be pushing this to the point that I'm getting drops. I mean, it's dropping from 70 frames a second to 20 frames a second, and then like you update the drivers, and it's like
boom,
perfect. Done, perfect. So that, took care of that. I've still, a couple people I know are having some performance issues just because they don't have super beast rigs. But I guess the solution would be like make sure you've updated your drivers because apparently this is really dependent on them.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
So I'm like 3 or 4 hours into it. And there is a lot of, it feels Saints Row-y in the sense that it's got that coarseness in the dialogue and the writing. People say motherfucker a lot.
There's a lot of gratuitous swearing.
Yeah, and gratuitous swearing in place of character traits, basically. And some of it makes sense.
It's a kind of a lowbrow game.
A little bit. It works more or less. I think I
think that's actually the best way you could describe the game.
Yeah,
it works. It's more or less.
And it feels. I think Eurogamer probably nailed it the best when they said it's mechanically sound but ultimately hollow.
Yeah,
because I love the idea they're trying to do here, but I feel like they just didn't quite get there.
Yeah, because it's like you have 3 characters you control at a time, essentially, that you can swap in and out.
Yeah, so you're picking
out of 12 total, right?
Yeah, and you only start with the 3, and you have to unlock the others as you kind of hire them or do their missions and find them. And everybody's got roles, so like basically you're trying to, when you go out and deploy, you have to pick your 3, and you essentially want a balanced team because everybody's got different abilities, but it boils down to you've got shield breakers, armor breakers, and giant killers. So shield breakers...
So you got light, medium, and heavy, essentially.
Not really. It's not really. It's more about what kind of damage they do. So shield breakers do more damage against energy shield opponents. Armor breakers do more damage against physical armor. And giant killers do more damage against large enemies. Because sometimes you run into stuff like golems and giant things. So you want, basically, unless you're real confident, you want one of each. I have actually been running without an armor breaker currently because I don't like the only armor breaker I have, which is hardtack. Character's fine, but like he's shotgun based, and I just don't do shotguns and me don't get along.
Why is that?
Too short range. I just don't like it. Like I don't want to get in that close. I'm a long range. So my favorite character right now is Rama. who is the Indian biogeneticist turned badass archer.
Okay.
So she's got because of the apocalypse, whatever that has happened in this world, which I don't. Apparently, this world is a spin-off timeline that was created during the events of the Gat Out of Hell game,
right?
Which I've never
That's
played.
of course sort of the loose tie-in to Saints Row.
And Johnny Gat is in the game. He's one of the agents. Which Johnny Gat is probably my number one. I don't understand why people like this character. I mean, I don't even know if people do like this character. So the Johnny Gat thing has always felt to me like Volition is trying to make fetch
trolling,
happen.
yeah.
Like the fact that everybody is so distraught over his death in 3, and that everyone is so gung ho to bring him back in 4. I'm just like, who cares?
Yeah.
He's so big. He's just like a guy.
Dude,
like, it's just a dude. Now, admittedly, he has some pretty cool animation in this game because he does a lot of shooting behind the back and stuff, and there's a lot of personality to the characters. I think they did that pretty well.
Again, that's kind of the Overwatch MOBA influence coming in there.
And it's you've got your the Ark, which is where you go, and like that's where all your upgrades and stuff happen, and like it feels like a cool little home base. And it takes place in Seoul, a very futuristic Seoul, which is sort of like some kind of. It reminds me of like the '90s depiction of Metropolis in Superman, where everything's like the city of the future, and everything's like hovering around, and you teleport places and stuff.
Lots of purple.
Well, yeah, because you're still Saints Row. It's like
it's like all purple.
Because the fleur de lis is from the Saints Row gang. It's the symbol of Agents of Mayhem. So somehow the Saints in this timeline are a superhero team, run by a former supervillain named Persephone. Very international, like everybody's from a different place, and it's a very diverse cast in every imaginable way. It's like I like everybody who's joined the team so far. I've only got I think 6 of the agents right now, but I like everyone so far, even the obnoxious ones like Hollywood. I don't like Hollywood's personality, but I played him best.
That's all that matters.
Because he's a standard shooter. He's got a machine gun and he shoots a grenade out of his crotch. And
you know what to expect.
And his super move
is shoots a grenade out of his crotch.
He goes like that and just shoots a grenade out.
You just said that like all nonchalant.
No,
shoots a
that's
grenade.
this game.
He's the usual guy who shoots a grenade out of his crotch.
And then his super move, it just makes him faster, more resilient, and his gun does more damage. And and random explosions happen because he's the Hollywood action star. So things just blow up at randoms.
That's kind of awesome.
I mean, when you activate it, he throws his shades on, an explosion happens behind him, and he goes, "Cue the music!" And like it's basically a Michael Bay movie for the next 10 seconds, right?
It's pretty clever.
So I like it. So I've been rolling with like kind of a lighter, faster team right now, but I like the option. And then like I just unlocked yesterday. You get a certain level, and you unlock like a big world map, and you can like Assassin's Creed. You can send like non-active agents out on timed missions, and they bring back more stuff. There's a lot of crafting in this game, like crafting upgrades for your weapons and stuff. You got to find blueprints, and you got to craft the blueprints. You got to
and every other game.
And everybody's got like the agents all have their own skill trees and all their own upgrades, and they all have their own levels. So everybody's got like max levels 20, and then I think you can use these cores to upgrade them beyond that. But everybody upgrades on your team of 3. Everybody gets the same XP, I think, more or less. And at least that's what.
But you have to play with the characters too.
You have to have them active.
Yeah.
So anyone back at the base does not get XP. So you got to upgrade everybody because like
it encourages you to use them all.
And like it's interesting because they start level 1 basically, and they start with a mission that's just them. It's not a team of 3. It's just you play as just them. It's called a special episode, and you play as just them in a mission that's balanced for just them where they are, and they introduce you to their abilities, and that's kind of how it works. And then they join the team. You can do whatever you want, but early on, it's best to kind of baby them a little bit because here's the thing: every time you go out into the world, you can kind of pick the difficulty scale, and like the higher the difficulty, the more bonus you get for whatever.
Right.
It keeps upping the difficulty. I think it might do that.
You mean organically?
Yeah. Like every time when I go back, I'm like, wait, I didn't have this on difficulty 5, and it just moved it up to 5 because 3 is the standard.
Right.
I had up to 5, and I'm like, I didn't do that. And I'm wondering if they're starting to move it up because it's like you're doing too well, so we're gonna.
I think they would alert you to something like that.
This game may not do that. I don't know.
It's a little. I think that's the biggest criticism everyone's leveling at it is that it's like it's this big game with all these features. Its design is. I mean, it's crazy to think about a game with this kind of design getting the scores it's been getting. Because even 3 or 4 years ago, people would be like 10, 10, 10. It just shows you how games have evolved in general. But I think the biggest complaint is that it just doesn't feel that polished in a lot of places.
No, it's like. The game, I guess the way I describe it is, it thinks it's a AAA game,
right?
But I think it's a B list. I think it's a B game.
I mean, you can watch 20 minutes of gameplay of the game, and you'll see something.
Also, you pretty much know what it is. At that point. It does feel. I mean, the gunplay, the shooting, and stuff feels way better than any of the other Saints Rows.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's not saying a whole lot.
Not saying a whole lot, but it's good. I mean, it works. The only
I thought the gunplay felt great. I played it at E3, and I thought the combat was
the only
fine.
real complaint I have is I don't think it alerts you well enough when your shield goes down.
Nah.
Because you have a shield and you have health, and basically, and it does. The Saints Row games kind of have this, especially the last two. Like it's kind of tough to die in those games. Like you don't really take a ton of damage.
Yeah.
And this game, you can die like that if you aren't paying attention and you're not using a tank kind of character. And especially, it's very level dependent. So if you're up against the wrong guys with the wrong character, you could be in trouble real fast. So like,
I feel like this game came out in the wrong month.
That too, but basically I think it needs to alert you better when your health is low, and I don't think it does that very well. But it has the same problem that Volition's games always have, especially the Saints Row games, where like once you kind of have everything open and everything sort of all the gameplay concepts are sort of introduced, and everything so now you've got your big list of missions you can do. Everything's there. You got your first quadrant of the city open, and you just look and it's like, okay, here's the 7 to 8 mission types that I now have to do 3 to 5 of each. And
it has always been a problem with its games.
And it's just not just the repetition, but the fact that I don't find a lot of their mission type ideas very interesting.
Yeah.
And that's been a constant problem through the Saints Row games.
I mean, a lot of times their missions, you're right, there's a handful of types that repeat, and I think they try to get mileage out of that with like props and gags.
Yeah.
Instead of actually like what you're doing. It's like, hey, here's this goofy weapon that you can use on this mission instead of just changing what the actual mission is.
Yeah, they have something like that in this called Gremlin Tech, which is...
well, then there was like the 4-foot-long dildo that they had.
Right.
I mean, so that's kind of their MO.
The equivalent of that in this is the Gremlin Tech, which is there's a girl named Gremlin who builds the weapons. And so you've got Legion Tech, which is like upgrades to your main weapons and like cool new weapon stuff.
Yeah.
And then Gremlin Tech is... so those are permanent upgrades, more or less. Like you equip those on your abilities.
Right.
Whereas Gremlin Tech is like, one-time use or like, ammo based. You have to craft the ammo over and over or find it. And those are the weird weapons. So there's like one that like, I have one that just shoots a ball that bounces around and blows up. I have one where every time I change characters, a nuclear explosion goes off. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
So there is the crazy
Props
stuff is still there.
Yeah.
But then it's like, I hope you like doing foot races through checkpoints because there's like 7 of those.
Nobody likes that.
It's like, it's just, and the other thing is like, I've done one where I can't finish it in time, and I can't figure out what the problem. Like, unless there's jump upgrades that I don't know about, like none of my characters are fast enough or can jump far enough to make it to these various like ledges they have to make it to. So I'm wondering
you probably
if
have to upgrade and come back later and do it later.
They don't have any upgrades for stuff like that though. Everybody kind of has a standard thing.
Well, maybe a character that you unlock later on is faster.
Maybe. Like I don't know. There's a long way to go in terms of how many characters you can unlock. And I like them.
There's 12 total, I think.
I think
right?
so. Yeah.
Yeah. So Matt, could you recommend that anyone buys this game? Because
not
here's
for $60.
the thing. Yeah. Because here's the thing: if it had come out in May or June, when there's this down period, and there aren't really, one, not any games like it coming out, but two, just not really any games coming out, period, it seems like a much easier sell then.
Yeah.
I mean, we're already seeing with this episode of GameFace, here come the games.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much every episode of this show,
Avalanche,
from here on out, is going to be like this. We're not going to be talking about frivolous topics. We're going to be talking about frickin' games, which is great. But that's not great for a game like Agents of Mayhem. Like it's like Uncharted. The Lost Legacy comes out next week. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's another third-person shooter, obviously completely different tone. But how do you convince somebody to buy Agents of Mayhem and not buy Uncharted?
If you just want game time, Agents of Mayhem is going to last you like 60 hours and do everything. But it's like even when I bought it, I was like, 60?
Yeah,
really?
that's
like
hard.
It doesn't feel like a $60 game to me, and I don't want to be mean by saying that, but it's just like. And I also like a lot of what Volition does. I like the Saints Row games. I appreciate that clearly the people that make those games... Somebody at Volition is a Transformers fan, because there's references to Transformers in every single one of those games, even if it's just they name the various vehicles after Transformers that turn into those vehicle types.
Right.
And I appreciate that. I appreciate that you put Stan Bush's The Touch in Saints Row 4. I'm into it. But, like, this one, like, as much as appealing
ultimately
as
the rubber hits the road,
yeah,
though.
As appealing as the idea is, I just don't think the game design is there, you know, in terms of the missions, like what you're actually doing. I enjoy running around and blowing, because if you know, like what you do in these open world games where, like, you find a guy, you shoot a guy, it, you know, gives you a star rating, and then more guys show up and you kill those guys, you get 2 stars. So if you do that long enough in this game, they send like kind of a mini boss after you, and when you kill the mini boss, your star rating goes away. So it's like you can kind of end up in this crazy like 10-minute long firefight just off of like killing one guy, and I enjoy that because otherwise you can run away and it'll go away. But like I enjoy that, and it's like I like doing that, but like I find that way more fun than doing any of the missions I've played so far, and that's a problem.
That's for a game that big. Yeah, that's a big problem.
And like so, basically, I mean, I hate to say it because I like Volition and I don't want them to have bad things happen to them, but like I would have to say like, wait until after the Q1 inevitable Q1 deluge next year, and if you can find it for like half price, maybe pick it up then when there's nothing to play in April.
Might be a fun game for people to mod as well. Yeah. That might be one of those games that people latch onto and do crazy stuff with.
And I kept thinking about, on NeoGAF, there was a thread, somebody made a thread like a week or two ago, before it came out. It was a while ago, but they made a thread about like, you know, where's the hype for is there just no hype for Agents of Mayhem? But they made the thread on their phone, and autocorrect changed it to, is there no hype for Agents of Maybe? And I'm like, that is the best name for this game I have ever. I'm like, that done. And everyone in the thread is like, oh, that's the game's name now. Like that's what. There's your official thread title right there.
That's pretty funny.
And it's not the official thread title. I think ended up being Aints Row.
Oh.
But Agents of Maybe is kind of a great.
I don't even know if you could give this game a maybe right now with all the Q4 stuff about ready to hit. And,
well, I did it. So.
Yeah. Well, you had to talk about the game on the show or whatever. Recommending it to someone watching this, I think, might be pretty tough. So
it's so it's like I don't dislike it, but it's just one of those things, especially like you say, given what time we're in here and what's looming on the horizon. You got better things to do in about a week.
Yeah, so not even a week, really.
Yeah.
All right, it's time for our trailer of the week. As I just mentioned, Uncharted: The Lost Legacy is coming out next week. Game's been getting. It was on my fantasy team, of course. So, of course, it didn't get great reviews. That's just the way it is. From now on, every game I ever have on my fantasy team, you just know is not going to do as well as you think it is. It's getting okay reviews. I think it's Metacritic's like 85 or something like that.
It's a good thing I picked Mario.
Which is still really good, by the way.
You almost sabotage Mario Odyssey.
Yeah. Which is still pretty good. But when you're talking about Uncharted, people seem to like it. So... The launch trailer came out for it today. Figured we'd celebrate because obviously it'll be out next week before we do the next episode of GameFace. So here it is, the launch trailer for Uncharted: The Lost Legacy.
3 Persian invasions. 3 separate wars. And all these years later, no one has found it.
The Tusk of Ganesh.
Wow.
Spectacular. No wonder the Hoysala capital was ransacked.
Their loss is our gain.
A thief? You're working for a thief.
Everyone's got to make a living.
You were going to sell me out, weren't you?
Let's get one thing straight. This is my gig. You want your share? We play by my rules. What's it gonna be? Asab is getting a head start and we need to hurry.
We? All right!
I can't let Asab get that tusk.
I will incite my civil war. Stamp out the bloodline of the young king. Starting with you.
Razor!
Let's go get our disc. And some guns. And some guns.
Sorry, babe. What took you so long? Had to catch a train, love.
All right, so we're not live streaming this episode, so obviously we can't get questions from the chat today. And I did miss kind of having that interaction with the chat during the show. I feel like I definitely miss Sam. His empty chair makes me weep. But we did still get questions from you guys. We went on to our Discord chat, which has actually been around for like a year. And I'm so damn busy, I've never even went on it. I finally went on it this week, and I was like, holy crap, this is awesome. So if you go to the homepage of Sifted, and you look up at the top there in the carousel, there is a link to our Discord chat. And it is a live chat app with just Sifted users that's going literally 24 hours. Like the other night, I wrapped up work at like 2 or 3 in the morning, and I went in there and I said, time for bed, and like 5 people were like, good night. I'm like, what are you doing? I'm the only one who should be crazy enough to be up right now. So it's rocking around the clock. It's a great place to go and chat with your fellow sifters. Check it out. And I went in there today and asked people for questions for the end of the show. So we have a nice little selection here. I actually forgot to go back in and tell people, okay, we have enough. So I'm assuming while I've been sitting here, people keep adding questions into the Discord chat. But here we go. First one is from Johnny Hurricane. Outside of Mario, what game are you two looking forward to the most for Q4?
This is kind of a cop-out, but the DLC for Horizon.
I don't think it's a cop-out. Why would it be a cop-out?
It's not a game. It
is a game.
It's DLC expansion, but that is the thing.
It appears to be pretty
it's
beefy.
meaty. Yeah. That is the thing I'm most looking forward to in Q4. Probably even more than Mario, frankly, because I love Horizon.
Up until yesterday, I wouldn't have said this game. But then the PR person contacted me and said, hey, do you want beta codes for this? And suddenly I became very excited. So Call of Duty World War II.
That was going to be my other pick. I'm excited to go back to World War II and shoot some Nazis.
I fully expect to probably be disappointed by this.
I had to actually do a bunch of capture for Old War, like Medal of Honor Allied Assault and some other games like that. And like, you know what? I missed the World War II stuff. Like some of that stuff was pretty good.
I just think I'm sci-fi'd out at this point. It's like I just played a ton of Lawbreakers and Destiny 2. And all those things are just kind of starting to blend together at this point. And it is something absolutely different. It's funny that we've come full circle a decade later, and now World War II is something different.
Suddenly it's fresh.
But that's the truth. It really is at this point. It's something completely unique. So if it weren't for Mario, and I should probably clarify too, I'm not looking forward to the campaign as much as playing multiplayer, World War II era multiplayer.
I'm the
highly
other way around.
Oh, really? You're excited for the campaign?
I play the game. I'm not excited, but I'd like to play it.
I just feel like I've played through all those stories so many times already.
Yeah, but I'm a history fan, so I don't mind seeing a new take on it. Also, man, I went back to play some more. I played the original Medal of Honor this week on PlayStation 1.
Oh, wow.
And like, woof.
Yeah. Even though people thought that thing was like god at the time.
I mean, that thing's pretty advanced. And I mean, there's you can throw the grenade and they kick it away. Or they throw up. I mean, there was some real stuff happening there, but like, man, those graphics. Hard.
PlayStation 1 games really hard to go back to.
The dog with the triangles for legs.
Everything with triangles for legs. Next one from Rowdy Wabbit. What are your thoughts on Epic sending out review codes for an early access game? Is Epic expecting Fortnite to be re-reviewed when they think it's ready?
That's a good question, because I don't think it will be.
It will definitely not be.
Yeah.
Although I am kind of surprised sometimes. Like, a lot of people are reviewing Undertale again this week because it finally came out on PS4. And but it's like, dude, there's millions of reviews for Undertale. I don't know why you would pay someone to review Undertale.
I think the main reason I would be interested in a review of PS4 for Undertale would be how well it made the jump to a console, essentially, because some of the ways you fight.
No, you're right.
It was easier with a mouse. I would say.
Right.
And did they?
You're absolutely right.
Did they?
But you could. That's like a one paragraph.
Yeah, I don't know if that's worth $150 to a freelancer, but like, yeah.
I mean, we're kind of caught up in this whole pay for early access thing right now. I mean, we saw with We Happy Few, that was on early access. That was like $30. Now it's coming early next year as a full $60 release. At this Fortnite,
do you think that can sustain that?
I don't know. They said they've quintupled the size of the game or whatever. Deep Silver, or is it Deep Silver that's publishing it? It got picked up by a publisher.
That sounds right.
We Happy Few did.
It seems like a Deep Silver game.
Yeah, it does kind of make sense.
Much like Shenmue 3.
Yeah, exactly. Also, yeah, Shenmue's just picked up by Deep Silver as well.
Looking forward to the release schedule for that, just like Dead Island 2.
I mean, I have never seen a game that, when it went on sale, people already knew it was going to eventually be free. Like, games have been for sale and then become free or free to play.
I really want to play Fortnite.
Yeah, and it says apparently 1 million players are playing it right now.
I mean, it worked.
Apparently.
How much is it? $40?
$30.
$30
for Fortnite. Yeah.
30 million.
Yeah.
I don't know how much they spent developing that. It's been around for a long time.
I'm not quite getting your question about sending out review codes for an early access game. You mean hoping that publications will review it based upon its early access?
Based on what it is now.
I don't really care about that.
No, I mean, if that's what they decided they want evaluated.
I mean, that's their fault. If they're encouraging, and I got a free review code, so I can't say anything. But if they're encouraging the press to review it at this state, then that's their choice.
Also, I mean, look, this also makes more sense to review it now for the consumer, I think, because right now is the time they're demanding $30 for it.
Yep, you're right. Yeah, when it's free, who cares? You can just download it for free and check it out for an hour and decide.
That was always, we used to get that on XPlay. We used to get people constantly asking, what was that free MMO RuneScape? Was that?
Yeah,
RuneScape?
that's one of them.
Constant requests to review that game. We're like, it's free. Play it. Try it.
Who cares what we think?
Yeah,
I mean, honestly, like them sending out review codes is what they should have done because they're asking people to pay for it. So yeah, I think they actually did the right thing as far as sending out codes for us to evaluate the game and making sure you guys knew before you paid for it whether it was worth paying for.
Yeah, and certainly it's worth like commentary on how it's come along once it goes free to play. But I think most outlets can do that through other channels, through their podcasts or through whatever. Or separate videos they put up, and also like there's going to be no shortage of community videos about whatever the changes will be. So
we talked about it obviously at length. So Cartoon Tom, do you guys think Shadow of War's loot boxes will pay off for Warner Brothers and potentially begin a new trend for single player games, or can you see it being a case where a publisher has taken a step too far, like Deus Ex's Augment your pre-order? I talked about this already on DLC a couple weeks ago. So Matt, why don't you take this one?
I think. Well, my guess on this, I don't have like solid info on this, but my guess on this is because they just showed, they announced basically the end game of the game was the Shadow Wars, where basically once you take over all of Mordor, Sauron starts coming at you, and so basically you have to defend all the places, fortresses you've taken. You got to hold them. If you lose them, you got to take them back. And if you win that, you get the quote unquote true ending of the game. My theory is that the loot boxes are going to be very tied to that part of the game because I think that's going to be very hard, and I think you're going to have to equip your fortresses and equip your orc commanders, whatever, for each fortress, like with good gear, and I think you're going to get a lot of that stuff out of these loot boxes. The question here is...
It's all about drop rates, really, is what it comes down to.
But the question here is that part of the game, or whatever part of the game they're focusing on for the loot box necessity, is that going to be too hard to play without excessive grinding? Is it going to make it not fun unless you're willing to spend money on these loot boxes? And I think once you cross that line, you make me angry.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping they balance it so like it becomes, EA kind of does that too, where like there's things you can buy like whatever for if you want to unlock all the cars, you want to like if you want to just jump to completion and pay $3 for it, cool. But if they balance this wrong and it's like you have to buy some of these loot boxes to be competitive in this end game thing, that's going to be a problem. People are not. I don't think people are going to react well to that.
No, they won't. I mean, that's why I said it all goes back to drop rates. If you're earning a ton of crates in game with your in-game play, but you're not getting the stuff that you need to succeed at the game, that's where it gets crappy.
Like, I feel like Injustice struck a good balance on that. Injustice 2, rather. It struck a good balance with that. I never felt like I had to buy currency or crates. I felt like the game gave me enough that I was well equipped for what I needed to do and what I wanted to do. So, so that's Warner Brothers. So Warner Brothers, I think, got that balance pretty good in Injustice 2. So if they can continue that trend with this one, obviously it's a very different game. But if they are generous in the same way they were in Injustice 2, I don't think I'll have a problem with it. Is it going to make it a constant staple? I don't know. I mean, the success of the card pack thing with Microsoft hasn't caused everybody else to start doing card packs. So it's like, I feel like every big publisher is sort of looking for their extra monetary flow thing, and there'll probably be a permutation of this for each publisher eventually. I don't know if it's going to be this that will set the standard, but I guess we'll see.
I think the other thing, too, is that if people pay for the loot crates, the drop rate should not change from playing in-game. Yeah. It should be the same. You have the same chance of getting high-level stuff if you pay for it as you do when you earn it. You cannot give people the ability to pay to get the easy way out. That's my opinion. So
I think that's more important.
It all comes down to database and number crunching, and
I think that's more important in a multiplayer game. Like
for sure.
If you want to, if you want to real cash cheat your way to,
Well, that was what I said on DLC. Is that I care more about this in general in multiplayer games. Is where
like if you want to
single player, it's like
if you want to cheat your way through real money to godhood in a single player game, like okay, if that's what you want to do with your money.
Yeah, it doesn't affect me.
My main concern is it going to be playable and completable without
paying,
grinding if I don't want to pay anything because I don't. So
and that again is game balance. And
also consider that one day. Also consider that one day, whatever servers you need to use to buy this shit will be gone. And if you ever want to play Shadow of War again, EA figured that out a little bit with Mass Effect 3, where everyone was like, well, what about the time when there's no one playing co-op, you can't do that. And of course, they rebalanced it, and like the DLC in addition basically gave you more war assets than you could ever need. Yeah. And it basically made that aspect of the game irrelevant. Hopefully, if Warner Brothers has an eye to that on this, or makes it irrelevant to easily complete, not easily completing the game, but it's like I don't want to feel pressured. I guess would be the way I put it. And I know people freak out about these things and go crazy. I mean, I'm willing to give it a shot to see if they did it right. Before I'm not going to say no, I'm not going to buy your game because you have microtransactions. I don't care.
Right. Single player again, it goes to single player, multiplayer. It's like single player. I don't care. It's like
as long as you don't
do whatever you want to do. Yeah, as long as you're not screwing me. Yeah. I don't care what everyone else does. Multiplayer, that's where it starts to get dicey. Mm-hmm. Rex Fury. With Sonic Mania getting rave reviews, that might be a little extreme. And I am assuming selling well. Can you see Sega getting Christian Whitehead? There's his name. We got the name from chat, even though there was no chat.
Look at that.
You guys are awesome. See Sega getting Christian Whitehead and Gang to make a sequel. Also, can you see them doing something similar with their other IP, like Streets of Rage, perhaps?
I'd love to see them do that with Streets of Rage, even though they already shut down that fan game from several years back. Yeah. I think people were hoping they were going to do something similar to what they did with Christian Whitehead with that situation, but they didn't. The one ray of light there, I would say, is that the Streets of Rage games have made it onto the 3DS Virtual Console. Yeah. In like a revamped...
Shows that they still know it exists, at least.
In a revamped 3D conversion way. I mean, it's a
they actually did some work
piece of work.
It, yeah.
The thing is, beat-em-ups just aren't really a thing anymore, unless you're Castle Crashers, really. I would love to see Streets of Rage come back. I would love to see Altered Beast come back in some form that was not that terrible game from a few days. Same with Golden Axe. There's a lot, there's a lot of good Sega properties that are just languishing somewhere. But
this was a perfect storm, though. Yeah, this was a franchise that was beleaguered, that fans were pissed off at at Sega for how it had handled it. You had this fan who had been making great Sonic games, and you had the fans saying, "Hey, let this other fan make the game." Mm-hmm. And at that point, Sega's off the hook, because if it comes out and it's crap, it's like, you asked us to let this guy make the game. This was a perfect storm for Sega, and it just so happened that the game came out amazing. Mm-hmm. So
it's also a really big contrast to how Nintendo handles this situation.
Oh, yeah, where it just shuts things down or whatever. But do I see this happening again? No, I really don't.
I mean, I think Sega is looking towards
a sequel. Yeah,
I do see it, but definitely. I also see Sega looking towards bringing back their older IPs. That is a thing they're working towards right now.
Just not the fans.
Probably not in this format, in this approach. But I think you will see them attempt to do that. But they could do worse if they're going to bring Streets of Rage or Golden Axe or something like that back, or Shinobi. Fingers crossed. A Sonic Mania equivalent of Shinobi. Oh, I would give you a lot of money for that. But I think I might be the only one. But at the very least, I would hope that Sega asks Christian Whitehead what he thinks. Yeah,
they're going to make.
The man seems to have a head for this. This style of gameplay, the 16-bit gameplay, level design. I wouldn't mind seeing him consult on future things, even if he wasn't directly making them.
For sure, but I have a feeling he's going to make a sequel to Sonic Mania.
I would think so.
I would bet if I had to bet, I would bet on it happening for sure. Next one from Shelburne. With Lawbreakers tanking and Hellblade not setting any records just yet, Do you think the $30 AAA game can work after all, or does it need a bigger publisher boarding the train, which is probably not going to happen anytime soon? I kind of talked about this a little bit during Hellblade, about how now Ninja Theory's kind of backed into a corner of, like, we can make an awesome game for, like, hardly any money.
Yeah, they don't have to take that contract, though, if somebody comes knocking. But, like, I think Hellblade isn't setting any records, but it doesn't need to. I think Lawbreakers has to do way better than Hellblade does.
Yeah, I mean, Lawbreakers' team wasn't that big. It was probably like 30, 40 guys, something like that.
But I feel like it needed. I think they were hoping for better than they got.
Well, they also had a publisher.
Yeah.
Whereas Hellblade didn't.
Yeah.
So NCSoft floated the bill for a lot of stuff for Lawbreakers.
Is that Nexon?
Is it Nexon or is it NCSoft?
That was Nexon.
Whichever one it is. And I do always confuse those two publishers.
Yeah,
Whichever one it is, they floated the bill for pretty much everything. Like, there was very little risk on the part of Cliff and his coworkers as far as whether Lawbreakers does well or not. They were getting paid the whole time, making salaries. They weren't like, okay, we got to sell X number of games so that we can all put food on the table or whatever. So they did have the backing of...
Nexon.
It's Nexon. Yeah. So they did have the backing of a publisher, which makes a difference. I don't think the price is the problem with Lawbreakers. Like, Lawbreakers...
I think the market is the problem. They're crowded.
It's just saturated, and it is different. That's the crazy thing. It is not like other shooters.
It just doesn't look different.
And we talked about it the last episode you were here. We were talking about how the silhouettes of the characters make it tough. And
that's not fair to Lawbreakers. That's a factor, but it is a factor.
I wouldn't say it's unfair. I mean, they could have looked at the market, and look, that is one of the easier things to change.
Right.
Is a character model.
But we always say, like, don't judge the book by its cover.
Yeah, I mean, I love Lawbreakers. I'm having a blast playing it, but the truth of the matter is, when you're in a market full of really character-heavy, not even just shooters, just games in general, and you have these generic-looking soldiers, it's going to be hard to stand out. And, you talk about how things like streams get people on board. Like, watching Lawbreakers, it's impressive to watch because it's so fast and the traversal's incredible. And it looks different, but it just doesn't have that spark where you can just, it's late at night, you're flipping through streams and Twitch. It does not catch your eye.
Yeah.
And that's something that Overwatch does just like that. People notice Overwatch in more character-driven games, and it's like when you're flipping through channels, it's not even flipping through channels now, but...
I mean, I even know Overwatch just from the color palette.
Yeah.
Just like you can see a little flash of it. Oh, that's Overwatch because that's that certain tan color.
And even Agents of Mayhem.
Yeah.
Like, it's distinctive looking, even though the game itself is extremely rote and, the gameplay is nothing. They're kind of different ends of the spectrum there, aren't they? You have Agents of Mayhem with a distinct look that's memorable. Gameplay is like whatever. Then you have Lawbreakers, which is the gameplay is amazing and the look is whatever. And neither one of them, I think, are going to be incredibly successful.
Yeah.
So there's no easy answer, but I don't think the problem is the $30 game. I think imagine if Overwatch launched at $30. Would the $30 price tag be a problem? Heck no. No. It wouldn't be at all. It really just comes down to the game itself. Is it worth the $30? And I think Hellblade is going to sell great. It's already sold 300,000 on PC alone.
I think it's going to sell. I think word of mouth is going to carry it a long way, and then I think it'll get another surge near the end of the year because I think it'll be at the Game Awards. It'll be mentioned in Game of the Year lists. I think Cliff said the same thing about Lawbreakers. It's a marathon, not a sprint, and so maybe a similar effect will happen on Lawbreakers. But I think Hellblade is a much shorter marathon to run.
Yes, without a doubt. All right, here's our last question of the day. What is taking Ubisoft so long? And you could basically ask this of pretty much any publisher. To create a Players Unknown Battleground mode for Ghost Recon Wildlands. Seems like easy money. I mean, you could ask any developer of any shooter right now this question, and my guess is they're all working on them.
Probably all working on it. I also don't think it's as easy as we think it might be.
Yeah.
Because I think you have to. That's a very large area that game takes place in, and not all engines are built for that. Wildlands feels like it should be a pretty simple mod.
My argument would be,
you don't know what the difference is.
I think one of my complaints with PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds is that the area is too large. Like, I feel like there's too much downtime and time where you're just not doing much of anything.
Yeah, but it's like, I haven't played too much of it, but it's like, I've watched enough of it to know it's like, part of the appeal is the downtime, because it's like how you gotta let the horror movie breathe.
Yeah,
Like,
I get that.
When the action happens, it makes it even better, I think. Which also makes it kind of like bad for people with not a lot of time.
Yeah.
But
those matches turn over really quick.
Yeah.
But look, you could do a mode where instead of 100 players and 1,000 square miles, it's 50 players and 50,000 square. Like you could, there's ways you can truncate the idea and encourage a lot more confrontation and quicker match turnover as well. Not that that's really an issue with players.
it is a scalable. I mean, by definition, because of how the game works. Period.
Right.
It's scalable.
It totally is.
It just depends where you want to start that circle.
But I would not be surprised if we start seeing this mode in
This feels like a no-brainer to me.
or it's like a
for
DLC, like for Call of Duty World War II.
Yeah, I will be a little surprised if at some point during the course of the Call of Duty World War II Season Pass there isn't a permutation of. Everyone calls it PUBG, but I think it should be called Poo Bug. A permutation of that, like maybe combined with a zombie mode.
Yeah.
It feels like it's just right there.
I mean, here's the thing too: is that Bluehole, the developer behind PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, only has so many resources. It did get some investment apparently from Tencent or something like that. Although I think that may have ultimately been debunked. But man, I don't
know if there was rumors that Tencent had acquired part of them, and I think that was debunked.
But there are juggernauts out there like EA and Ubisoft that could throw money at this concept and very quickly make PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds seem irrelevant.
The question remains, like, are those companies even done having the meetings about this game?
Right.
Like,
there's so much red tape.
There's a lot of these. Some of these corporations can move real slow when it comes. You remember trying to explain.
Money can make stuff go real fast.
Yeah,
though.
but you remember trying to explain what streaming was to some of these, some of the large companies we've worked for, and you're sitting in that boardroom, and they're just like,
what?
Wait, they what?
They watch people play video games. Yep. So, I get the spirit of your question. You're asking, why aren't more publishers and developers jumping on this phenomenon? And I think that they are.
Yeah. I think you're going to see like a year lag time.
I think at next year's E3, and it may be too late, but I think at next year's E3, you're going to see a metric ton of PUBG, or whatever you want to call it, clones. Poobug. I wish that game were just named something that was easier to say.
Yeah, well, I mean, Battlegrounds is too generic to trademark, so they had to do something. So
that's the guy's name.
Yeah, they went the American McGee route. That's fine.
Yep. So, all right, that's it. That's it for GameFace episode 98. Hope you guys are having a great weekend. Again, apologize that the show's going up a little late, but there is a ton of work that is going to go into this show after we leave this studio to get it up for you guys. Hopefully you can understand that.
Normally done by Sam.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So, that's the beauty of the TriCaster. It's like we leave here, it's just done. Now I have to give it to an editor who has to put it all together. But, so don't forget, Gamescom kicking off real soon. You're probably watching this on Saturday. The next day, Sunday night, is when Microsoft's press conference goes down, and then it's just on from then on. So stick around on Sifted.net. It's the only place you need to go for any convention coverage. So everyone have a great weekend. GameFace is up and out.